time, Mayor and Council, this October the 23rd, 2018, at 6 p.m. on the College Meeting. We'll
Lord, we thank you for this beautiful autumn evening, and just help us to do the city's business, to have integrity, to be transparent. And Lord, with all that's going on in the Atlanta news and some of the excitement here in Villa Rica, I just pray for special protection for our law enforcement. Lord, would you just put your guardian angels around them as they serve and protect our city? In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first on our agenda is presentations. We have some very important people in the county for our young people, and it's all about them kids. With the chief out, he'll appreciate that. But we have in our midst tonight Scott Collard, Superintendent of Carroll County Schools, and Mr. Glenn Harding, the principal of Villa High School. And I'm going to put a plug in while I've got a chance to do this right now. And I want to invite all y'all to come out tomorrow night to the high school at 6 o'clock and watch our Lady Wildcats represent us. We have a very good softball team, and I wish I could. We probably will have in a future meeting, but I'm so proud of our young people. So I'm proud of our high school, I'm proud of our kids here in Villa Rica and the parents that have raised them and the educators that educate them. So without further ado, I will ask Mr. Collard to come up.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you again. We're here about a year ago, I believe, to share an update on the school system. And the board has asked me to make this an annual process where I come to all the local government entities that we serve, all the city councils as well as the county commissioners, and to yearly give an update on the school system, and specifically also an update on the Villa Rica cluster schools while we're here. So thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate Mr. Harding being here. On behalf of our two Villa Rica board members, Dr. Pinkney is out of town this week. Mr. Cleveland could not make it tonight, but they did ask me to let you know that they were thinking about it. As I mentioned, the board has asked me to do this because one of the things we have recognized for our school system, and that we're unique compared to some of the other school systems around us, is that we serve multiple government entities. We're not a one high school system, we're a 5 high school system, but what's unique even in a 5 high school system is the number of small cities though they may be, we serve. In studying successful school systems in Georgia, especially right now, those that can connect with their communities and build great partnerships with their communities are more successful than those that are not. Again, single high school systems have somewhat of an advantage in doing that, because normally those single high school systems are built around a city with a city council that works very closely with the school system. So what we've tried to do is take that model and see how we can adapt and become even better partners with the city of Villa Rica or city of Bowden, whatever it may be, in our efforts to help young people learn, grow, and succeed. So that's why we're here. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but one of the exciting pieces of tonight is I've got so much I want to say. So you may have to call time. That's okay if you need to, but I will try to be short. Before we get started, hopefully you have at your place 3 things. Number 1, you should have a Villa Rica cluster annual report. Our Villa Rica cluster schools for the last 8 years bring stakeholders together in the fall and provide an annual report of progress with the collective schools of Little River. All of our clusters do that. This is a report that was from that. I hope you will take the time. I'm definitely not going to read it to you, but there's a lot of good information in there. Some of you have been able to attend that. I would invite you next year, hopefully more of you can attend that, because it's really exciting to see the good work that's happening in our Little River cluster schools. The second thing that you have is a copy of our district annual report. So what we do, since we have 5 clusters, we aggregate the performance across all clusters to come up with an overall district. And we feel like you as a community would want to know how's the whole district doing, as well as how the Little River cluster is doing. And the last thing you have is a little card, and which is the last thing that I'll talk to you about. It's our vision card. So let me just jump right into it. How are we doing? When we look at the district, when we look at our schools in the Little River cluster, how are things going? And I want to start with, when you think about metrics to measure success, oftentimes in the school world, one of the first places people will go, are you gaining students, or are you losing students? How's your enrollment doing? Are you growing? Are you stagnated? What's happening relative to the growth in the school system? So I've got good news both on the district level and in the Little River cluster level. For the first time in the history of Carroll County schools, we've had 4 consecutive months of over 15,000 students. Prior to this year, there was only 1 month in the history of the school system that we were ever over 15,000 students, and we've been over 15,000 students each of these opening months of the school system. We're up 137 students from last school year. We're up 462 students over the last 5 years. What that means for us is slow and steady growth. Okay? We want to grow, but we also want to grow in a manner that we can manage and control, especially from the facility side of it. So that's good news. Now, as far as the Little River cluster school, also good news. We're at 5,320 students in the Little River cluster. So roughly a third of our students for the Carroll County school system are located as part of the Little River cluster. That's up 34 students over last year. The high point of enrollment for the Little River cluster schools was 5,367 2 years ago. So we're right about that same number, down just a tad bit. The growth over the last 5 years is actually 116 students for the cluster. If you remember when the economy was down 2010, 11, 12, in that area, what happened for us, and I'm sure in the Little River cluster you saw it too, is that the population kind of stopped growing for a short period of time, obviously because of the economy, housing, things of that nature. It has picked up for us. It has picked up in the Little River cluster and for the district. Our 5-year projections obviously show that it will continue to pick up, and there are opportunities for us to have discussions about that. I do want to say to the City Council, we are excited. We've invited Tom and the mayor to come meet with our Board of Education on November the 7th, I believe it is. Every year we have a planning retreat with our board, and we felt like it might be an important opportunity to have representatives from the Little River City government there to talk about the growth that you're seeing, what opportunities you're seeing, and interface with us in our board in a planning discussion. Last year, Tom and some other folks came down and talked to us about some of the opportunities that were happening, so we look forward to that discussion, and hopefully we can continue to do that type of partnership every year. So as you're growing, you can help us see what you're seeing, and we can share what we're seeing, and together we can do a better job of planning. Now, when it comes to answering the question of how the school system's doing, the ultimate measure that we're held responsible for is our graduation rate. We strive every year to make sure that our students are successfully graduating, either to be enrolled, enlisted, or employed. Okay? And what's so exciting this year is where we're at as a school district. And maybe to show you the excitement of that, let me tell you where we were in 2011. 2011, the district graduation rate was 67%.
Wow.
This year, the district graduation rate was 91.7%. That only happens because of the great work that's happening in our classrooms, the job that our teachers and all of our educators are doing, the job that our young people are doing, and the responsibility that they're starting to take for their own learning. Phenomenal turnaround. The story is just as bright when I break it down and look at the actual Villa-Rica cluster. When you go back to that same year, Villa-Rica High School was sitting about 68%. Okay? Now, this year, we finished with 91.4% in Villa-Rica High School. First time Villa-Rica High School has ever been over a 90% graduation rate. Again, so we're extremely excited about what Mr. Hardy and his staff and the students there are doing. Now, when you talk about the district as a whole, we've got some other things to be excited about. This past year, we were rated in the top 18% of all school districts in the state. Our elementary schools, when you take the collective 12, were ranked in the top 5% of all elementary school groups in the state. A lot of good things there in the district, but I think it's more important to break that kind of data down around, again, the schools in the Villa-Rica cluster. So let's talk about a few of those. Just last week, the state came out with what they call their distinguished list of Title I schools, and it's the top 5%, and Villa-Rica Elementary was in that number. Okay, that top 5% is 83 total schools across the state. Carroll County had 8 of the 83, so 10% of that was Carroll County schools, and Villa-Rica Elementary School was one of them. This past year, Ithaca Elementary School, for the 7th consecutive year, was named a highest performing school in the state of Georgia. 7th consecutive year. They, along with Rooteville Elementary, each have had 7 consecutive years of that. We don't know of another place in Georgia right now that can match having 2 elementary schools that have had that type of recognition over that sustained period of time. Latin Heinzman Elementary School here in town, this past year received a silver award from the Department of Education for greatest gains. In other words, taking the students from where they were to a higher point and really being rewarded for the fact of progressing the students. So those are some real examples of Villa-Rica schools succeeding. We talked about our two middle schools. Both of them are making progress for the first time that we've seen in a couple of years relative to every area, and we're excited. We've got new leadership in both of our middle schools, and we're excited about where that's going for the future. And then, of course, the high school, we've already talked about the graduation rate, but there are other things that we could mention, because we often talk about what we call the 3 A's when it comes to schools. Number 1A, and the most important A, is academics. Okay? And I've just shared with you a lot of academic success. The second A for us is extremely important is the arts. We're really trying to emphasize our arts programs. Research is really clear that when students are engaged in art activities, especially at the elementary level and moving up through middle and high school, their likelihood for success goes way, way up. Research is really clear on that. And we're proud to say that we've increased participation in art programs, music programs, band programs. Our Villa-Rica High School band is actually an award-winning band. They were grand champions last year at a marching festival. And if you just look at the participation numbers in the Villa-Rica High School band over the last 3 years, we made a change in leadership 3 years ago, and it's a drastic difference. So we're really excited about arts. And then the last A is academic, athletics. And Mayor, you just mentioned, a couple of different things, relative to the softball team. Last year we had our girls basketball team make the Final Four. We had, baseball team made a good run last year. Boys basketball has had several sustained years. Some of our minor sports like volleyball and things like wrestling are starting to catch on. So we have more kids participating. We added gymnastics at Villa-Rica High School this year. So we have tried to take steps to get more kids engaged in some type of athletic or arts activity, because we know that helps them academically. So a lot of excitement. Let me transition from that and kind of, as I get towards the end of my comments, talk about 3 kind of broader things. First, One of the things we're most excited about in this particular area for Villa Rica High School, but also for Temple High School, is the College and Career Academy facility that we built a couple of years ago next to Villa Rica High School. You know, I say as much as I can, as often as I can, we're the only district in the state of Georgia where the Board of Education has made a local commitment to have 2 of these facilities. Nobody else has 2. And the second facility was not done with any state money. It was totally a local funded effort to do that. And it's made a huge difference for the students at Villa Rica High School. We've nearly doubled the number of students at Villa Rica High School who take advantage of that program now, because all they have to do is just walk the high school just across one road, walk in the door, instead of getting on a bus and driving 30 minutes one way and 30 minutes the other way. And that's if there's no traffic to take that. So those are high-powered programs that the high school kids are getting a part of. So we're excited about that. We're also excited about our Performing Arts Center that we built last year. In the last 12 months, we've had 350 events in our Performing Arts Center. There was some conversation before it was built about how much it would be used, and I think that answers to a large degree that question. What's so interesting, it's not just school events, which there's a lot of the concerts and things from the schools, but we're having a large number of local businesses who are using it. We have a large number of community events and outside events that are coming in. The University of West Georgia has partnered with us, and every musical concert that they do is in our facility. And as part of that partnership, they made a huge financial donation to the facility itself to do that with us. It's the most acoustically calibrated facility of its type anywhere on this side of the state. So something we're extremely proud of. But the last thing I wanted to update you on is maybe the most important topic that I can bring to you tonight. As much as we're proud of everything else, one of the things that's really on the tip of a lot of people's tongues right now is safety. I know even in the prayer, you were talking about our law enforcement officials, and we need that. But, you know, when we think about safety, the one place we want to make sure is really safe is where our kids are. And that's, I mean, you know, whether it's you as a city council, or my Board of Education, any and every parent, community member wants to make sure our children are safe as they can be. I am pleased to tell you, or summarize for you some of the steps that have been taken in our school system. Last school year, the board invested a little bit over $1.2 million on a state-of-the-art digital camera system for every school in the district. You can talk to Mr. Harden there about what a difference it has made in just the day-to-day safety inside of our schools. Huge, I mean, a phenomenal piece of that, and that's every school. This year, after the spring, when we had that awful situation in Florida, and the whole conversation kind of rose up again, the board, through a lot of discussions, said we want to do more. Mr. Cowart, what else can we do? And so, through some study and research, we brought back to the board a recommendation that we work on what we call access control doors. Across our schools, we had already started that process several years ago. So anytime we were doing a facilities project, we were increasing the number of access control doors, meaning that to get into a door, you could only get in there with a card access. Okay, so the door remained locked all the time, and, you know, whether it's a student, a parent, or whatever, you had to be buzzed in if you didn't have a card to get in the door. But we didn't have enough of that, because when you think about 26 school sites and probably anywhere from 30 to 50 doors in a particular school, that's a lot of doors to look at for access control. So we were not where the board wanted us to be. So they agreed to a $1.5 million investment this year, where we're going again and touching every single school in our school district and putting in more access control doors. And we are tickled to death about that. Our folks are. What's interesting is we've been able to integrate that in with the camera system, and it's one seamless system that our principals can program and use in each of our schools. So that's really exciting. The board asked though that we do more. Because of some public input we had, the board asked for an outside external audit of each of our schools and how safe they were. And what we have done is we have brought in GEMA And they are auditing each of our school sites, as well as all of our auxiliary buildings in the system. And they are doing a very detailed report, and again, Mr. Hardy can talk to you about that if you're interested, for his school, where they sat down with him when they were finished and said, Mr. Hardy, you're doing these things well, but here's some things you really need to consider. And a lot of them were not things that are going to cost money. A lot of them were just ideas and thoughts that people who do this for a living were able to come in and say, this is something you really might could do that would make your school safer. And so we've got that. We'll be presenting those reports to our board at our upcoming retreat on November the 7th. But when I talk about safety, I'll be really remiss to talk to you without bragging on what you've done. Because the city council and the city of Villa Rica over the last couple, 3 years has really stepped up in helping us. We always partnered with you for resource officers at Villa Rica High School. But now we have resource officers also at Villa Rica Elementary School and Gladden-Heisman Elementary School because of your vision to, again, help us continue to make our schools a safer place. And we appreciate that, and we thank you for that opportunity to partner with you on that, because that's very valuable. So when you look at collectively all of those steps that have been taken, our schools will be safe. Now, are they ever going to be as safe as we want to be? My answer is always going to be no, because I always feel like there's probably something else we can consider, something else we can look at, and we need to do that, and I commit to you that we will. But we feel like, again, as partners, we need to update you on the strategic investments that our school system is making. The very last thing, if you'll take the card that I have for you, any really good organization periodically goes through a period of reflection about where we're at and where we might need to be and what we might need to do to get there. This past year, we had several focus groups where we brought in students, parents, teachers, community members, and asked them what we were doing well, what we could be doing better, and what were things that we might need to focus on for us to continue to get better as a school system. Okay? From that came these 5 vision commitments that are listed on the inside of the card. And very quickly, I'll read those to you, make a couple of comments, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Our number one business, and the main thing that we should do, is focus on learning. Okay? Because our job is to make sure every child learns more every day than they did the day before. So that's our number one focus. So we are committing as a school district that we're going to make that our number one focus. The second thing is extremely important to us. We had a long conversation with our principals today, is providing premier experiences. So when we do something with students, we do something with parents, community, we need to do it really well, high quality. We need people to be proud of what they're a part of. We need kids to say, I want to be a part of the Villa Rica schools. We do need parents to say, I want my children to go to Villa Rica schools, so on and so forth. So providing premier experiences, whether it's in academics, arts, or athletics, makes no difference. We should do it really well if we do it. We're committed to that. Maximizing our talent. We're really excited about this, and we've got some talented employees in this school system. Really good people. But you know what? We've also got some really talented students. And our job is to maximize their talent just as much as it is to maximize the talent of our employees. Fourth, serving our communities. This is probably something I'm as proud of as anything else. If you look in the Villa Rica annual report I gave you later on, and you look at the page that deals with community involvement, and look at the number of volunteer hours that our students are giving back to the community. Last year in the Villa Rica cluster, I think it was a little over 5,700 hours. We started 3 years ago emphasizing to our students the importance of giving back, of being good citizens, and what it means. And our schools have taken that and run with it, and because of that, we're really emphasizing what is it we can do to serve our community. And that's part of the reason we're here tonight. And lastly, it's very important, as I said earlier, we're a multi-high school district. Because of that, sometimes finances can be an issue for us as we try to provide equality to the best of our ability amongst our number of schools. So we have to do a good job in the area of stewardship with our resources both financially, with people, time, and whatnot. We have done that over the last several years, and because of that, we've made great strides. I think, hopefully I shared with you tonight the results of some of the things we've improved in. Look, we have a lot of things we still need to do, and a lot of areas we continue to need to improve in. So we want to practice that. Again, thank you for letting me come. I apologize if I took too long, Mayor. I hope I didn't. As I said, I could probably stay up here a lot longer, but I would love to, if any of you have questions, to entertain those and see what I can do to answer them.
Do you have a question?
I was just going to ask real briefly about one of the additions with the lockdown of the doors. Is that the SHIELD program? Is that what that is, where you can activate a lot of doors at once with the push of a button and
Really good
make
question.
them as failures?
Because there is confusion about that. It is not the same thing. Okay? The access control doors would be any door, an exterior door, that remains locked continuously and can only be accessed with a card reader access. The SHIELD system is more than that. It's where all the exterior doors and internal doors are connected together, and if there is some type of intruder situation, that everything locks down.
All done at once.
All at once, and instantaneously, there's a call made to law enforcement. I mean, within seconds. And so that system, we put the first one in at Rootwell Elementary 3 years ago, and now I think we have it in 5 or 6 schools. Glanton-Heisman actually is one of our latest schools that we put the SHIELD system in. The access control doors, actually, when they're in, they become a part of when we put the SHIELD system in. So even though they're different, they actually work together. The SHIELD system is like the second phase, and it goes much deeper than just the access control doors.
Okay, thank you.
But they're both extremely important. The board's commitment on the SHIELD systems are to continue to put those in each year as we have funds to do. And anytime we do a major facility project at a school, we'll put a SHIELD system in.
Any other questions? I just want to say that I appreciate the working relationship that I have with you, Mr. Cowart, and with you, Mr. Harding. I know we've had several issues here over the last few years that you needed help from us and vice versa. And Mr. Harding has always been very receptive to all my calls, and I really appreciate that. And it's all about these kids, and Chief's going to laugh back out of the back. That was always my saying when I worked for the city and the recreation department. And it is all about the kids. It's about our future generation. And I see heads shaking all over we're all about these kids, and anything we can do as an elected body to help you out, we want to do that too. So thank you for being here and updating us. I think this is great. And, we're going to attend, like you said, the meeting coming up, and we want to be a part and be a partner in education with you. So thank you all.
Look forward to being back next year.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the agenda before you. I would like to, under council updates, I'll just mention it. We don't have to add it to the agenda. Are there any changes in the agenda as printed?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend the agenda to add an executive session to discuss real estate.
Okay, any others?
I've got a question. Because of the folks in attendance, can we move item D2 up to A2?
D2? D2 to A2? Is that right?
It's fine with me. Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. Moving right along, we have reached the public comment portion of our meeting. If anyone wishing to give public comment, please do so at this time. Come forward, state your name and address for the record, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
Michael Young, 9634 Clifton Green Drive in Mirror Lake. This is our first month of 2 voting meetings a month, and I agree with the premise to cut the meeting length down, but I think we lost something. When we had a working session, a non-voting working session, it allowed citizens to listen to the points that were going to be voted on, listen to the discussion by city council members, and weigh in their own mind, and then the following Tuesday come in and begin the meeting, express their opinions. Now, we have an opportunity to express our opinions, but we don't actually know what city council members are going to say about each of the points. We haven't had a preview of what they consider important and not important on those points. So we lost something. I would ask you to look at how to recapture that.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
West of Point Grove, 635 South Street. I want to talk about the planning of our repavement of our streets and when it's going to happen on South Street. I also want to talk about a danger of people speeding down South Street and using it as a raceway and endangering our future kids' lives. If anybody's going to do anything about that street at all. And when they're going to repave and do something about the speeding down South Street. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
What ward is that? Yours. Right there behind the tape shows.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Picker. I'm a resident of Myrtle Street, and we've recently had some problems with the smell in our neighborhood. Mr. Pritchard, he's also a Pritchard as well, and we live in the same neighborhood. I've spoken to Mr. Tom Bobby, and I expressed the smell. I call every day. I haven't really got an answer that I want to hear because the smell actually is coming from the bakery. You wake up to a rotten egg smell. It's been going on for over a year. We've been told numerous amounts of stories about how they have to deal with the city to bring the sewage through where the residents decide to be sick. So we wake up sick with headaches. Again, I call every day, and I'm like, it happens more so on the weekend when the city is not open. And we have no one to complain for, no one to tell others. So every morning we wake up with headaches, a horrible smell, and we can't really come to a solid answer. The next step, as I was informed, they would run smoke through the manholes. The letters were passed out today in the neighborhood. They were passed out, hand delivered. That's what Mr. Barber informed me. And they're telling us now that if smoke comes into our homes, then that means we have a problem. So we have to handle this ourselves. Because these are houses that have been around forever. Some of the houses were recently built when I purchased in 2006 or 2007.
My house been there, since 2003.
So everyone on my street has this problem. Y'all smell it. On Russell Street, that's the street that's next to Myrtle Street. We smell it. It runs through our houses. My daughter's room is on the bottom, so she gets to smell the most. I mean, you couldn't tolerate the smell. I invited him over myself to come and smell to see what I experience every day. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I wake up and I can, I don't even want to be there. So can you imagine paying a mortgage and you don't want to be in your home because of the smell that we experience every single day? And, what's the resolution?
Thank you, ma'am. And I just want to say, I've talked to Mr. Pritchard on a couple occasions on Facebook, and I've talked to our city manager. We normally do not respond during public comment, but I would just ask Tom, when you respond to these folks, would you CC me on that so I can see?
Let me just ask a question. Tiffany, that was what I was going to ask you. Did you put down your name and address?
I'm good.
And do you live on Russell Street?
I live on Myrtle Street.
You live on
He lives on.
Okay, thank you.
One more thing I wanted to add, and it's kind of personal. I was recently diagnosed with endometrial cancer, so this has been going on for over a year. So I don't know, and I'm not blaming the situation, but who knows what this waste could cause, or what kind of problems it could be causing our families, children. We don't know. I don't even know the answer to what's really going on. Where is it coming from? So this is the reason why I call every single day, because of my health concerns. So I just want answers, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Elmer Cheney, and I live on 407 Albion. And I just want to know, I'm a motor bus driver, been driving for 30 years. And I just want to know what can we do for our kids to keep drugs out of hand, keep them out of gang. Because in Atlanta, I've seen it firsthand all the time. I've driven the bus from Alpharetta, just about every bus out there I've driven. And what can I do, and what can we all do to keep drugs and gang out of our city? I think it's very important, because if the drug into the kids, they might not have no good future. They give it the gang money, they might not have no good future. What can I do? Now, one man I did speak to, Coach Butler, and he gave me some good recommendation, and he said he could find stuff like that, and I thank him. And I think he on the board or something. I forgot what position he has, but I just know the coach is a good one. Who else I talk to about this situation? And the other situation is right at Carol Vista, right at Dollar General store. Been fighting for that for over 15 years for a traffic light there. You got a wedding place there, that Dollar General, and it's streets. We have had many accidents there. If they just put a light there during school time, I think they help out. They can put somebody to get serious or maybe killed before they put a traffic light there. You can have help that out too.
Sir, if you leave, make sure you leave a way that we can contact. There are people in this room right here that are involved in the schools in this community that can answer some of the questions for you on that, and we'll get you an answer. I think you're talking about the one at the high school, Rocky Branch Road. Is that the traffic light? That's a state highway. Just know that we are pursuing that with the state. We can't put the traffic light up. It's a state highway.
Stay out, okay.
Yeah. But we'll get back with you in writing on that.
All right. What can the school do about it? Because I think that's a school issue too. For the safety of the kids.
Support the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
evening. My name is Shirley Hillsman. I live on 406 Garden Street here in Lawrence. And I have a question that I want some answers to, because we've been having surveyors or somebody over there doing measurements of land and property and stuff. And I can't get no answers to what's going on. Some say something about a roadway coming through that way or something other, and I'm not sure what's going on, but I do want to know. And if it's something that I should be concerned about, and what should be my concern?
Did you leave your information? We'll get back with you on that, ma'am. Were they in vehicle? Did you see what kind of vehicle they were driving? What kind of vehicle were they?
Driving trucks, and they had this little surveil land like they think they were surveying the properties and stuff.
Okay.
When I talked to one of them, they said something about a roadway, but I don't know what, I didn't get no answer satisfaction to what they were doing.
Where's your address?
Darden Street.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comments portion of the meeting. Council updates. I have one that I would like to bring up. It's not on the agenda, but I was honored to be a part of the presentation today here in this room. One of our officers, Hunter Etheridge, would you stand, please? He didn't know I was going to do this. He's probably going to arrest me on the way home tonight now. You know, keep on standing for just a minute. Chief, if you'll stand too, this is special, and this meant something to me, and we are so blessed in this community to have men and women in law enforcement that keep us safe. We had an incident today that just drove that home to me, how lucky we are to have police presence in this community. Hunter Etheridge has been with us since 2007. The chief recruited him, and I'm going to use the word recruit as a college, as a guy that follows Georgia football. He teaches at the college, and Hunter was one of the right students. I think, how many officers do we have here that you've taught in college? 5, 6? So, there's a benefit, and that's not on the city's dime either. That's on his dime, but he teaches at the college, and he picks the first round draft picks, and we end up with those as officers here in Villarica. So, Chief, thank you for that. And but today I had the pleasure of seeing Officer Etheridge, who was recruited out of college that the chief taught at, worked his way up to a sergeant, and was promoted, thanks to this council approving a lieutenant's position this year. He was promoted to lieutenant today. So Hunter, on behalf of this council and the citizens that you serve, thank you for your service and for all the service to everybody. Anybody else?
Yes, I got a few items. They're not quite as exciting as Hunter Etheridge's promotion. David, I want to read off a couple of 3 updates that I'd like to get. I'm having to be way away from this microphone. Usually it don't work, and tonight I can hear it and I'm a long way away. I just want to read these 3 things off. I want to ask you to give me an update on it, and I'm going to try to use this time at each council meeting to follow up on the list of items that we are concerned with. So, in February of 2017, I asked for a process to have executive session minutes, whereby in executive session, we would keep those minutes, and I think you do, but we don't have a process in place for the council to review and approve those minutes, nor to go back and review those. So let me do all 3 of them, and then I'll let you take it. I think it'd be easier that way. So if you can give us an update on that and where we're at. And I know you're taking them, I see you take them, but the second thing is, at the last council meeting, I discussed certain employees having contracts. You were going to look into maybe a couple of questions about whether or not we should do that and how that would be done. I'd like an update on that. And then I've asked if the council has a procedure manual for conducting meetings. Sometimes I feel like we play a game of home monopoly up here, where one rule applies this week and then another rule applies another week. Well, let's say month, because we used to do it every month, but now it's every 2 weeks. So if you would just update us on those 3 things. I'm not looking for any hard updates, but I want to keep this kind of update process going.
Sure. And let me go just in that same order. On the executive session, our process is that I take the executive session minutes, that I keep them with me till I've collected up 6 months, a year's worth, and then I take them to the city clerk, and they should be kept at City Hall from that point in time. As far as having a written procedure, we don't have one, but I think that that's the prime candidate for being included in the procedure manual that you're talking about. The city does not have any type of procedure manual as to how we conduct meetings, how we put items on the agenda. But that's something that I have seen other cities that do have that, and what I'll do is see if I can come up with a couple of samples so that this council can look at it and decide if it's something that you in fact want to have. I think it's a good idea so that everybody understands what the rules are as opposed, we've had rule changes over a period of time as people on the council have changed and people come up with good ideas about how to do things differently. But it will always help to have it in writing so that if you do want to do something differently, you have to formally vote to change that. And then on the contracts issue, the specific people we were talking about was the city manager, the city judge, city attorney, and the police chief. For the city manager and the city judge, we already do have contracts with them. I think it's perfectly fine for the city attorney to have a written contract also. I haven't ever had one in 25 years, but that's one of those things that maybe does need to be changed for the good so that we can reduce it to writing. My only one that I have some question about, and I'm still researching that, as to whether or not it is appropriate to have a contract with the city police chief. And, conceptually there's nothing wrong with it, but there are some state statutes that deal with rules for police chiefs, and I want to make sure that we would not be violating if we did that. I don't know of any police chiefs that have a contract, but I'm sure that in the universe of all police chiefs in Georgia, probably some do. So I'll have to follow up on that point.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to tab A, governing body. And the item that we have two items on the tab A. Number one is the Carroll County Service Delivery Strategy Agreement. Tom?
We've discussed this at a couple of prior meetings, the September regular meeting and then the previous meeting. We have before us an agreement that has not been updated in some time. When we discussed this in the October meeting, the earlier October meeting, we listened to a presentation and had some conversation about the content of the document that we were approving relative to what we had on hand. You should have each received a copy of the forms without all the intergovernmental agreements. So what I was delivered and what you received were not the same thing. There were 6 sets of intergovernmental agreements interspersed in those forms that I didn't feel like were valuable, and I told you that in the email that accompanied the document, and nobody asked for any of them. So if you ever want to see any of those and you want to know what Rootville's agreement with Carrollton is about something, then it's in there, but it's the same, it's the 6 subjects that are governed by IGAs, and those are also in that document that will go to the state. What I did send you was a 91-page set of forms with a few maps and some other things. I went through the document. I found a handful of things that I thought were not correct and sent those to the county clerk. I have not gotten a revised version back, but most of them were not substantial. There was one instance where one of the list on the front page of the form included all 8 cities, but in fact one of those cities was not a party to the agreement. The second page had it correct. So, things like that where there was just a mismatch of something. There was another instance where a couple of the cover sheet items, where you would have just a paragraph or so about the service, seemed really awkward to me. and so I noted those. So hopefully they'll clear those up just to make them a little bit more useful looking back on them, because I'm sure that language has existed since 1999, and it's just continued, update after update. So hopefully we can get that straightened out. But I didn't find anything substantial that needed to be changed in the forms. I've not gotten comments from any of you, so my recommendation at this point is that we approve the document, even though you've not seen the whole thing. The substance of it is the 91 pages that includes the cover and the forms, so that's my recommendation. And if you have questions about any of the services, I'll be glad to take a shot at them.
Okay, I got one question here. The convention tourism, you gave us a sheet that has a red line on page 2 and a red line on page 4. Is that changes to the SDS? Are these changes? Been marked up?
From the original version.
Okay.
So the county has been working on this, Mayor, help me, August, July, or early?
We started in July.
So the county's been working from the original 99 version, which was revised in a couple of years, and then we even agreed to modify it in August or so when Mount Zion had the problem with the map.
Okay, I guess my question was,
that's what that is
if that is incorporated into what we're going to approve, that's already been incorporated, is that correct?
Right, the changes have been. So they did make changes to the cover content. Those 19 pages that we initially got, those are modifications from earlier versions of the document. But you can see, if you listen to Mr. Pilgrim's presentation, that what we're approving is not significantly different from prior versions of this thing. The mayor asked for a change in the way the recreation reimbursement was done so that it would include soccer, and that change was made. There was a reference in there to the Villa Rica
Tourism Board,
yeah, that was changed to the CVB. I mean, so the things that we asked for, they were very responsive and incorporated them.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we move to approve the joint resolution to adopt the proposed 2018 Carroll County SDS agreement.
Second. A motion to second. Further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
It's not unanimous.
Who voted against? All against, I'm sorry. All opposed? 3-1. Okay. Item number 2, which was moved up, is the resolution to authorize Brownfields Coalition Assessment Grant Application. Lenise Lyons.
Good evening, Lenise Lyons, Planning and Zoning Specialist for the City of Villa Rica. The purpose of this is to pursue a joint Brownfield Assessment Coalition grant to the United States EPA with Douglas County and the Southern Conservation Trust for up to $600,000. Brownfield, we're aware, is a property where the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. I first spoke with Douglas County in July about and we thought that it would be a great idea for some of the in the city that are underdeveloped, underutilized, or vacant, or are simply abandoned or not used because there may be potential contamination. The first kind of sites that came to mind for Fullerville, where the textile mills are, where the old mills are, those sites. I'm thinking anything along the railroad, just some of the old properties that there may be something wrong with them, maybe nothing wrong with them. Also old gas stations, dry cleaners. Some of the housing can qualify in a time where we use lead-based paints or there's asbestos. So there are a lot of possibilities for this in the city, but the reason for the joint grant is that these grants are also very competitive. And to maximize the amount we can qualify for, we work together as a coalition with Douglas County, who's identified some sites. The Southern Conservation Trust is a nonprofit organization that holds 16,000 acres of land and habitats across Georgia and Tennessee. They have a significant site, about 200 or 300 acres in Douglas County that they're holding. It's an abandoned golf course that might be contaminated because of the fertilizers and other things that were used on the golf course. And they're hoping to partner with us in Douglas County to achieve getting phase 1 and phase 2 assessment money, which will let us investigate the historical uses, and if necessary, if it seems that a phase 2 is recommended, that will actually give us an opportunity to dig in the ground and see what's there. And then usually sites get cleared, but at this point we're just trying to make application. It does not require a match from the city for this assessment funding, but like I said, we think we'll have a doing it jointly. So, any questions?
So these properties are private?
They're private, that's right. And so, part of what we would have to do if we receive it is to get site access agreements from the property owners in order to investigate. And along with this kind of grant and this kind of process is an extensive public engagement process. We've identified some opportunities for us to speak to the public. I'm working with the library to reserve space in the future, if so warranted, to host a public meeting to get the word out to property owners, to even collect more properties. I think I included a list of potential sites in the. This is further would allow us opportunities to identify more if people are interested in participating in it. It's all voluntary, and we would use the assessment funds to do that for the property owner. So if they help them clear title to get the property developed or to sell it to another person that's looking to make the investment into our city, that's what would help us out.
Who writes this grant application?
As we have it now, the consulting firm that we've been working with is Earthcon. I think I included, probably a little late, they're helping us prepare Douglas County, Southern Conservation Trust in Villa Rica.
Who's paying for that?
That would come from discretionary funds from the city manager.
Do you have a price?
$3,000, and our match would be $1,000, just to prepare our application. They would charge nothing if we just simply agree that if we get it, we let them do the work. But we felt that should be something that we bid out, or at least, get bids for that kind of work instead of lump summing it to the consulting firm.
The concept sounds like a very good concept. The 10 properties that you list, 6 of them are one property owner.
That's right.
This has to be voluntary.
Right.
My concern is that we spend money, time, and effort into getting this grant, if we get it, and then these property owners are unwilling to be. In fact, 6 of them are one company, and the other 3 are of the same industry. Is there any concern about whether or not you would get buy-in from these folks? Have you had any discussion with them?
Because it's not work application, I thought it would be a little premature to get them, entice them in and say, oh, we don't have anything to offer. But I've been speaking with Tom and Bobby about the plan and the consultant. We're going to have to do public engagement at the onset. And overall, it's a redevelopment. It's a way to implement redevelopment.
Are you saying that the cost to the city is $1,000?
To apply.
To apply. What additional cost should we expect?
None.
There's no match.
Well, that's why I asked. So the cost to the city to do this?
Zero after
After the application. Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand what's about to happen here. So, we're going to apply for a grant for this company to determine if these sites, these 10 sites, are brownfields.
No. We're applying for the grant to be able to assess properties like these and others that may come along with the city if we get the site access from the owners, right? But right now, the company right now is with those sites and some others. They're already doing some background research, helping us put together a plan on how to move forward. But we still have to get the access before we can.
Okay, let's say one of them is my properties, and I give you access or the company access, and they determine that it is a brownfield.
What's next?
What happens next?
With that, we'll become eligible for cleanup.
You mean they?
Well, the city, they can't grant the money to a private entity. It would be a public entity, or quasi-public. So, if that owner so desired, we can move forward with that process, or they can do cleanup on their own. Companies all the time conduct their own runs in transaction of property. So maybe they do find out something they don't want to know, or is not painting a pretty picture for them. That's one of the things that may happen, but a lot of times there are ways to remediate sites without it becoming controversial, so to speak.
But what we're applying for here is grant money to do the remediation, not just to go out and determine if there are brownfields.
No, we're doing assessment on the grant is assessment only. Brownfield assessment grant, yeah.
Where's the document in this bunch of documents that says we're going to pay this outfit $1,000? I don't see that one.
It's not really included, but the scope of work that EarthCon delivers is in there. The $1,000 was when we met with Douglas County.
Yeah, I don't see it in writing. I don't see the document spells that out.
I don't have one prepared.
There's not one. We just talked about it in the meeting.
Yeah, it said, what was it, a lump fee of $3,000? What are we divvying up between the different organizations? Everybody will pay part. Because I do see the lump fee of $3,000 on, I don't know what page that is. Page 4 of, is that the last attachment? Yeah, the last attachment, 4.
I see 4 documents here.
Ladies, I'm just going to make a comment that kind of goes along with what Councilmember Carter said. The section on the cover sheets that we get, that the council gets, where it says fiscal impact, this has a fiscal impact, correct? The money's got to come from somewhere. One of those should be filled out.
She said the discretionary from the...
Well, I know, but it would be helpful for me, anyway, for nobody else, where it says fiscal impact, and you've got annual capital or other, then if it said, if it's coming from that fund, then that needs to be there so I can see that, to Councilman Carter's comment.
We always want to know where the money comes from.
Absolutely.
And how much?
Any other questions?
Do you hear a motion? So the first motion is just to approve the grant application, is that correct? That's what it says.
Yes, correlation agreement.
Okay, I make a motion to authorize the city to pursue a brownfield assessment coalition grant application.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I think it was Shirley.
Shirley, second. Councilman. Yep.
There's a resolution here too, do we need to go through that?
That's what we use.
Do we have to approve the resolution?
Tab B, Human Resources, Stephanie?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I bring you a proposal to reduce some of our costs associated with our health benefit plan. We will not be changing deductibles. We are proposing that we do away with our primary care copay from $15 to $0, reducing our specialist copay from $30 to $15. Also increasing our emergency room copay from $300 to $350. But if you are actually admitted to the hospital after an emergency room visit, that copay will be waived, okay? Also, urgent care, we want to reduce that copay from $75 to $50. And our mental health and behavioral health, we want to reduce that from $30 to $15, in line with specialists. Any questions? These changes would become effective January 1st with the new plan year.
Okay, why are we making the changes? Is this just to keep up with what the other people are doing, what?
It's not necessarily to keep up with the other people are doing, but it's cost savings to our employees and anybody who utilizes the health plan. $15 copays can add up quickly, $30 copays can add up quickly. This just encourages, a zero copay, you're more likely to go to the doctor than if you have to pay them $15.
Okay, what's the cost going to be to the city when you make all these changes? Yes,
It depends on usage, actually.
The law, theoretically, is it saves us money because people who are hardheads like doctors and doctor visits and everything about doctors will actually go before whatever the condition escalates. I probably won't, because I'm not sure $15 is going to be the deal changer there. But anyway, that's the theory. Is in the old plan, I would have said that the key to the plan was for nobody to use the policy. But in our structure, we want people who have conditions to go to the doctor and then do what they say. Early. And so now what we're facing is, how do we motivate people to go to the doctor, or in this case, how do we not demotivate them? So in this case, by making the general practitioner copay zero, along with the fact that preventative care is no charge, hopefully people will go, and what we'll be bringing back to you at some point will be a leg of the participation formula that everybody has to go to the doctor once a year to get the lowest premium, right? And this takes away an excuse to not participate, because we want people to participate. We want them to go to an annual, early diagnosis.
I think one of the things to remember is that when we went to partial self-insured a year ago, this was one of the things we talked about. It would save money, then this would be an extra benefit that we would be able to add back on for the employees. I think we're making good on that with this. But I think you used the correct word, excuse. I think people use that $15 or the $30 copay as an excuse. It's kind of hard now to use that as an excuse. Healthier people will probably lead to lower cost over time for the city, so I think that it's not a cost savings that we're going to see immediately, but I think in the long term it will be, and I also think that this was part of why we did this a year ago. This thing has, so far, worked out good. The mayor points it out just about every month, and each time I think, but it is so far going well, and I'm glad to be able to do this.
And Danny, to your question, it's not going to affect the general fund of the city. It'll affect the health insurance account that Sarah set up, where the savings are. That's the only impact of the financial.
May reduce our savings in the short run.
Other questions? Yeah, is there a limit on how many times you can vote? I can vote that time go every month. I mean, that's, when we pay the cost of the doctor fee, the city picks up the tab.
Right. We don't have any incident of any individual overusing coverage at this point, although it's certainly possible.
We could address it if it became a problem.
I think that's an excellent point. We could address it if that was necessary.
Because we're in control now. We weren't in control. United Healthcare was and everything else. We're in control now. We can change this if we decide to.
That's one of the reasons that we can actually do this.
Yep. If it's not working, we can change it.
Yeah, what we will look back on, according to Wendell, at the end of 5 years, is a very non-linear claims experience. It's not going to be a fixed amount of claims each year over the 5 years. His statement to me over and over is in every 5-year period, you should have a couple of 3 okay years and one really good year and one really terrible year. That's just sort of the experience of the industry. And for better or worse, we just had the real doozy, great year, beyond what we could have imagined. So we were at 44% projected. Is it less now? I don't even want to know.
I think he told me 42.
It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. When the underwriter looked at us a year ago in August of 17, and set what our rate needed to be, the amount of money we needed to put in the account, our claims experience is under 50% of the underwriter's projection. And underwriters in the long run are not wrong, generally. So in the long run, payback is coming, right? And there's going to be a year where the mayor is not speaking fondly of the short-term performance because it's just going to average out. But right now, we're enjoying it, and so let's enjoy it, but realize that we're having that really great...
Y'all remember I told him not to speak it.
I know.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the changes to the city's health plan as presented effective January 1st, 2019.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember McDougal. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, ma'am. Don't listen to what Tom says, he's wrong. Tab C, Parks and Recreation, Vicki.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item that I have before you, this is concerning the gold dust and the proposed improvements that the council has approved. What we have before you is a contract for professional services. We're looking to, it has here master plan. What we're really looking to do is develop a conceptual plan that will look at all the proposed improvements that we've identified for 2019 as well as 2020. There are a few more that have also been listed. I don't don't know if, Elisa, you have that picture that you can pull up just really quickly. Part of what the improvements that have been discussed is the addition of parking, certainly the zero depth, the new playground equipment, as well as the bathroom, concession stand replacement and connection to sewer. Not a picture, but what you can, basically what you're able to see is we need to look to see how we can create a situation where all of this is really fitting on site. Because between what's already currently existing, we just want to know how to make this really conceptually work before we move forward to engineering. What we also realize is, as we talked about a lot of these improvements, we have to even look at ultimately seeing where, because we really don't have detention, stormwater detention, and we're going to have to be able to address stormwater. So in addition to what you've already improved, when we look to engineer the site, we've got to be able to address stormwater. So this is our first effort at really trying to lay everything out, even though some of these park improvements are in 2 different years. This is the first phase of doing that before we were to move towards coming back with a proposal for engineering. So the request is this contract for service is for $9,500, and so staff recommendation is approval of the consultant to develop a conceptual plan for how we're going to begin.
Is this a budgeted?
This is a budgeted item in professional services.
All right, y'all are on my lake now, so just grab a fishing rod when I talk about it in a minute. This is important. We've talked about playgrounds. Every 10th complaint I get is on the playground at Goldust Park. We talked about splash pads. We talked about replacing the old building between fields 1 and 2 over there. I called that place my office for 14 years. There are 2 ways to build parks. You can build it the old-fashioned way, which is to, as they come, you build it. If they need more fields, you just build more fields right next to the fields that you already have. And inevitably, you end up with a situation where you have way more fields than you have parking. Or you have way more fields than you have accessible restrooms. And you have way more fields than you have concession stands. And in Goldust Park, the concession stand is between 1 and 2, and most of the activity goes on in fields 3 and 4. So guess what happens to the concession operation? Plus the restrooms are between 1 and 2. So I think this is money well spent. This will tell us where things need to be. And Ron Huffman, who's in the crowd with us right now, I have full confidence in him, and I applaud this council on taking the right step, because the right way to build a park is to plan in advance and then make the park work and make everything fit together so it works better for the residents. So, and I am so excited about getting that playground replaced over there that I'm just...
As we all are.
So there's my statement.
All right. Make a motion. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the proposal with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions to create a master plan for improvements in Goldust Park for a fee of $9,500.
Second.
Have a motion seconded by Councilmember...
What's her name?
Me first. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.
This second item that is before you is part of our journey, if you will, to becoming a local administered government by the Georgia Department of Transportation. I have brought to you a number of things, and this is just, again, one of many things, but what we are required to do by the Georgia Department of Transportation if we want to be eligible for receiving and administering any projects that have federal aid tied to them is the requirement of adopting the Georgia Department of Transportation's procurement policy. What it speaks to in here, this is a requirement, and it addresses some of the requirements that are spelled out by the U.S. Department of Transportation, specifically how projects should be solicited, evaluated, and basically selected. While we've definitely adhered to these, particularly with one of the projects that we just administered that was last year really, what this does is just make it much more clear in terms of our procurement policy and that it's spelled out. So this is basically a letter that you adopt. We will GDOT as basically demonstrating that we are very clear in terms of what our requirements are as it relates to, again, procurement.
So in layman's terms, if we want to receive federal money toward engineering design services, we need to be certified, and that's what we're asking for.
Yes.
To get ourselves certified, and you're doing the classes, the training.
Yes. And this is not, just so that everyone understands, this is, I'm undertaking this certainly as the hope of getting funds for the trail system. This is anything. So if you have projects that as a city we want to submit for the TIP, you will not get them if we have not completed our full process of becoming certified. This is a cycle that will come up every 3 years. Again, they just want to ensure that their staff capacity at all levels, that number one, if and where they may make changes, you have also made changes. One of the common things to do is hand some things off to consultants. That is not allowable in the sense that, there's the lack of oversight. There has to be a staff person there that is speaking to and completely knowledgeable of what's happening and what's going on as it relates to any projects that are receiving federal aid by way of GDOT. So staff recommendation is approval of the adoption of the DOT procurement policy.
Discussion?
Good.
I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the adoption of the Georgia Department of Transportation's policy for the procurement, management, and administration of engineering and design related to consultant services. They need to stick just a few more words in there.
That was seconded by Councilmember Carter. All in favor? Thank you, ma'am. Tab D, Community Development, Bobby.
We're ahead of the game on that one.
Release.
Louise Lyons, Planning and Zoning Specialist. This next item is an update to the Historic Preservation Commission bylaws. And the purpose is to update 3 sections of the bylaws. This first came about kind of as a housekeeping item because we, in October, council voted to change meeting dates, to include to have 2 meetings, and the HPC bylaws specifically calls out when they're supposed to meet, which was the second Tuesday. So started as an amendment to amend that and to correct that in their bylaws. And one other thing that was discussed in that time was to increase the number of members, which leads to having to increase member terms. So section 3.02 seeks to increase the number of members from 5 to 6. And this was for the purpose to increase the likelihood of a quorum. Second is to amend the number of terms to be consistent with the increase in the members. So right now it's 1 year, 1 member is 1 year, 2 members is 2 years, and then adding the 6th member will need 3 members for 3 years in order to achieve the staggered terms. So that was just an update of that language. And the third part is section 4.01, which is in regards to the regular meetings, and amends the meeting date from the second Tuesday of the month to the third Tuesday.
Is that board full?
It is not full at this time. We are 4 members.
So 4 of 5?
Yes, we have 1 member to resign.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the amendments to the Historic Preservation Commission bylaws effective October 23, 2018.
Seconded by Councilmember Marchman and Councilmember Carter. Marchman should have this one. All in favor? It Passes unanimously.
She beat me out of the starting blocks, I confess.
And we already took care of item number 2, so item number 3, Mrs. Brennan.
Okay, the next item is the adoption of the 2018 through 2038 comprehensive plan update. We've been working with AMEC Foster Wheeler over the past year, from the kickoff to now, to meet our October 31st deadline to maintain our status as a qualified local government. We have Anna Johnson and Ron Huffman here, and Anna will present the overall comp plan update and future development.
Thank you. And again, my name is Anna Johnson, and this is Ron Huffman. We're from Wood Environment and Infrastructure. I'll wait a minute for the presentation. So tonight I'm just going to give you, review the process for the comp plan update, the comprehensive plan update, and just briefly give a synopsis of each chapter of the document. We can go to the next slide. So these are the chapters 1 through 5, and then we have Appendix A and B as well. So I'm going to just dive right in. We can go to the next slide. And one more, please. Here we go. Okay, so those of you who came to the public workshops, this slide might be familiar. And so these are the primary questions that kind of shaped the entire comprehensive plan process and document. So first we assess where are we and where are we going. And we look at census data, we create an existing condition summary. So we're looking at everything from different elements of the population to physical features, what's the current land use and zoning, what natural features do we have. We also look at the report of accomplishments, which is created from looking at the previous comp plan update, and that takes the short-term work program from the previous comprehensive plan, which specifies specific projects, and it gives, it lets you know the status of each of those items. So through the, where are we, we're looking at the existing condition summary, and where are we going? You know, we look at what projects was the city able to complete in those 5 years, and what do we still need to work on. Trends that were identified in the existing condition summary might tell us that some of the goals of the city have changed. So then we start to look at, well, where do we want to go? And we can go to, oh, I have. Okay. So where do we want to go? This is mostly revolves around the public participation. And here is our public participation timeline. We had 4 primary public workshops, which started last December. So, and then in addition to those workshops, which are shown in a purple color, we also had steering committee meetings. We had 4 of those as well, which coincided with the public workshops. We typically held the steering committee meetings the week before the public workshops. And in addition to those meetings, we also came to a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We did a Rise and Shine meeting, as well as a council work session back in August. And then we had our open house in August, and we transmitted the final document in September to the Regional Commission and state. And we were lucky that they did a fairly quick review, and we got word within about 17 days that we had successfully met the minimum requirements and no changes were required. And so here we are tonight. This has also been before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then here tonight for final adoption. And the deadline is actually next Tuesday, so we're doing great. So chapters 1 and 2 are essentially the executive summary and the introduction to the entire plan, which talked about the public input process. So now we're in chapter 3, which is the goals and strategies, so we're getting into the meat of the document. Traditionally, the goals and strategies are organized by different elements such as land use, transportation, natural resources, that type of thing. So we've consolidated those into 3 primary categories. We have development patterns, which is land use and transportation, resource conservation, which includes natural, historic, and cultural resources, and then social and economic development, which is related to housing, employment trends, and community revitalization. So this slide just goes through some of the main goals that we identified in the plan, which are supported by specific strategies, which are able to be implemented as projects. So when we think about the main things we heard in the public workshops, which if you were at the public workshops, you might remember these icons at the bottom. Balanced growth was something that we heard a lot about, how Villa Rica wants to maintain their small town character but accommodate growth that's compatible with the city. So balanced growth, that to maintain small town character and cultural identity while supporting growth. Another goal is to support infill development and redevelopment, develop enhanced design standards for all development, so that has to do with promoting quality construction standards, encourage pedestrian-oriented development, which can be addressed through land use and zoning, and then improve community facilities and maintain capacity as the city grows. With regard to transportation, we looked at coordinating transportation planning with land use planning, promoting quality corridor development to reduce traffic congestion, improve road connectivity and circulation, and expand multimodal transportation options, which is also related to the Gold Nugget Trail and Greenway system. The next category is resource conservation. So we look at specific ways to preserve and protect the city's historic and natural resources. Social and economic development, as I said before, this is related to housing, employment, and community revitalization opportunities. Protect and enhance existing neighborhoods, diversify the housing supply to accommodate future growth, maintain high-quality services for the citizens of Villa Rica. And then some economic development goals would be to stimulate revitalization activities and redevelopment of aging properties, create employment opportunities and expand business diversity, and enhance communication and coordination between local, regional, and state agencies. And each of these goals and strategies were developed based on our existing conditions assessment as well as feedback we received from city staff and public workshops. That leads to Chapter 4, which is the future development and character area policy. So when we're thinking of the future development guide, this is, along with the entire plan, you're looking at a 20-year horizon. So what do we want the city to look like in 20 years, and how do we want to grow? The future development guide defines the community's desired development patterns and guides future decision-making related to the physical development of the community. And as I just said, it recommends land uses and development patterns over a 20-year period. And as the state requires, it's supposed to be updated every 5 years with the update of the entire comprehensive plan. So the future development map is based on character areas, which is a little bit different from the traditional future development, future land use maps, which specify the use for each parcel. The future development guide assigns a character area to groups of parcels, and it allows a little bit more flexibility with the types of uses and appropriate zoning for that area. The character areas are based on 4 basic types of development. Those types of development are open space, neighborhoods, centers, and corridors. Open space is your parks, floodplain, green space, and your golf courses. Neighborhoods, existing neighborhoods are areas suitable for new housing development, infill development, so essentially just the residential areas. The centers are your activity centers. They may be commercial or mixed use in nature. They can be more intense, or they can be smaller on a neighborhood scale. And finally, the corridors will link the activity centers to the neighborhoods or to other facilities. And here is the final future development map that we created, and I know you've seen this quite a few times at this point. And I can go into more detail on the character areas if you would like, but essentially they are based on those four main types of community elements. For the most part, this plan recommends more of a residential for the city, and is promoting growth in concentrated areas where it's compatible with similar uses. So I'm going to move along, but if you have specific questions, I can come back to the map.
The grayed out area outside the city.
So the city itself is in full color, and then you can see that part of the area behind it has been grayed out. That represents an area within Carroll County that Villa Rica has identified in coordination with Carroll County. We've identified an area that we call the urban growth boundary, and that's where we're projecting growth to happen over this next 20-year planning period. One of the final elements of the comprehensive plan is the community work program. This identifies specific actions to achieve the community vision, or to achieve those goals and strategies that were presented earlier. Part of the implementation guide is what used to be called the short-term work program. It's now the community work program. It's a 5-year program that really keeps the comprehensive plan and the city accountable. And it says, this is what we want to do in the next 5 years. These are what's most important right now. And then at the next, it's supposed to be a guide for the city over this next 5 years. During the next comprehensive plan update, the city will take this work program and assess where they are, what did they achieve, what did they not achieve, and maybe some of the goals of the city have changed. So the state wants to see status of each of those items with each comprehensive plan update, and if one of the projects fell off the list, or if it was not achieved, you have to provide a reason why it was not, and how you will address that. And I spoke about these at the beginning. Appendix A and B were they answer the questions, where are we and where are we going? And these are the existing condition summary, and then the report of accomplishments, which is related to the previous community work program. And I think that is all I have. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So our last major comprehensive plan overhaul was in 2013, is that correct?
That was the last, it was, I think, 2005.
2005?
Was the entire comprehensive plan. There was the short-term work program was updated. There was a 2013 to 2018 short-term work program.
Yes, I remember. So this represents the first change in our comprehensive master plan for the city since 2005?
Yes.
Look at the bright side. It's done.
This is one of the moments we just don't say anything. But I think this is an important step. Obviously, this is one of the most important documents I think we've all worked on since I've been here. And just for the public, this is something that you all need to be familiar with. Download a copy of it and look at it, because this is what we project and what our consultants have projected as the future of this city. So it's very important. And I will tell you that there are going to be changes in this plan. I'll promise you that. I told somebody this, the only thing I can tell you about the direction of the Golden Nugget Trail is it's not going to be where it's projected right now. That's the only thing I can tell you for sure. So this is a working document, but I applaud Ron, you and your staff, and everybody. A lot of people in this room were at those charrettes and meetings. Your input was invaluable to us. I can't stress enough how important it was. And so, great job, and I look forward to reading this in depth and getting a chance to really see where we're headed as a city.
I would request a hard copy in living color of this document. It's a lot easier to read.
Mayor, who here was on the steering committee?
I know Danny Carter, Councilman McPherson, Matt, Clint, who else? Michael, was there Wilson?
Yeah, John.
I'm going off memory, which is not a good idea. So we have half the room, like I said, well, I knew a lot of faces. I saw a lot of faces in here that were at the meeting, so thank y'all for your hard work.
I like the accountability part. They hold us to it, say, you didn't do this, why didn't you? So I think that's good for the city. You ready for a motion?
There's your steering committee.
Mayor, you ready for a motion?
I am.
I make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2018 to 2038 Comprehensive Plan Update.
Seconded by Councilmember Marchman. Any discussion?
Discussing it for months.
All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. This man has been involved in Bill Ricker for so many years, and most of you do. He's the guy behind the scenes, Ron Huffman. Remember that name. Item number 4.
Mayor, I'd like to just reiterate some comments that staff is built with Ron and Anna. They've been great consultants to work with, and we really enjoyed it.
Ron, I think you can go.
Mayor, I'm going to read a little bit of this background on this solid waste ordinance. What you've got on your agenda is the solid waste ordinance and the structure under the title. The ordinance on its own. For years now, the city of Bill Ricker has offered solid waste services to its citizens, and for the last years, we've contracted with waste industry to do the curbside garbage collection. It's a once collection service. We also, internally, we've used up to 8 employees to do a bulk service collection system 5 days a week. Without an ordinance, we've just adopted some policies over the years and just kind of stuck with them. Because what's happened is the sheer bulk that we offer internally has gotten to the point where at times we have a hard time getting it done, and the cost dispose of it has skyrocketed. With $60 landfill fees, it's got to be one of the highest I have ever heard of in Georgia.
That's how much we're charged.
Yes. I think last year, if I remember correctly, when Sarah was doing our audit and our financial statements, we ended up writing off like 300 and something thousand solid waste debt that we could never, recoup. After that, I was with fixing it. What you have before you on the agenda is the solid waste ordinance that I think this may be like the 3rd time we've looked at it and talked about it. I think I had everything fixed the last time, but our Civic Clerk Plus software system wouldn't let us update the last revision of the ordinance. Nothing has changed to that version since then. Pretty much takes our policies that we've operated through the years and refined them and how we operate. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here going through it unless y'all have questions. But it briefly establishes what we want to pick up. It's a mandatory. It establishes all regulations, both curbside garbage and bulk waste is all included. It includes backdoor service and those definitions. Go along with disposal of holiday collection. Plastic carts are provided for household refuse and recycling. It covers our recycling program. It covers material too large for containers. It covers collection of household appliances. All the trash collections, got a section on scrap tires. We won't deal with those and not manipulate those. Covers our billing procedures and our enforcement. Like I say, this ordinance, I put it together based on about 30 years of experience in the industry and how municipal services carried out. This is the first ordinance that we have. So,
and I've said this before, Bobby, thank you for all efforts and whoever else with your staff that put this together. We have never had a solid waste ordinance, so this is a big step in the right direction. And one of the things that I saw right off the bat was that we will not pick up materials and furniture resulting from evictions from residential and or commercial properties. I know we had a situation here not too long ago. We had 2 evictions within a block of one another, and the piles were so large that, I mean, they were like several feet in height.
It's an entire yard.
So, I mean, that's a health concern in addition to being unsightly for the city. So, my question's always going to be, how are we going to get this information out to the public?
Tonight, the ordinance, we're going to recommend that it does not become effective January 1 of 2019. We will embark on a massive educational our citizens up to speed on, and there's going to be some latitudes given, because we're going from basically to, and we know that. I mean, this is not my first rodeo doing that, so we'll be sure to take care of that.
Clint takes exception to the rodeo comment.
Well, sorry.
I notice this cover sheet covers the fee schedule, but it doesn't cover the ordinance itself.
Look at the screen, I noticed that too, but I pulled up the correct one, I found the best one.
The fee schedule cover sheet was put into both items. That's what he's talking about. And they need to be dealt with separately. So I'm okay with going ahead with this one.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead with it. I want to discuss the second
Just
one.
pull up the one on the screen here.
That's it.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the solid waste ordinance as presented and effective January 1st, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Councilman McPherson?
That's okay, I'll tweak it, we'll tweak it afterwards.
How did you vote, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. It is unanimous.
Had a little tweak I wanted to, but that's okay.
Item number 5.
This one here, our bulk base charge is $7.50 per resident, and it has, I don't know, for many years, I assume
It was $5 this past year.
Oh, okay. That fee in the fee with the fact that we will have the 4 cubic yards of free to cover that covers. And a 4 cubic yard waste is a long bed with plus or minus. And then I've got a fee schedule included in here, to graduate on rim size as we go forward with it. You know, from 4 to 6 cubic yards is $15 extra, 6 to 8, and it goes on from there. Those are certainly their charges, but there's a ton of objectivity in that, that we got to be able to price that, and the latitude will be given to the customer all. If it's, it looks like a, $15 pound, that kind of thing. There's no way to do it, because obviously we can't set containers out for people to measure their wastage. But, we will certainly, gravitate those charges on the benefit of the customer. And that's going to take some time, because we go from 4 grapple truckloads, it's tough to go from that to, and it's just going to take time to work that out. Now these are recommended. If we need to change these, revisit them, it doesn't matter. They'll stand on it. The ordinance is the ordinance. It just comes separate. This is what I'm recommending based on where we are. I don't know how much waste we can save, because we've got no baseline to go by. We're going to have to get through a year to see where we are. And at that time, we need to adjust a bunch of stuff we can adjust. We need to go, solid waste, where I come from, is an enterprise plan. And it needs to try to pay for itself without having general fund help. So we're trying to get this into here. That's the whole concept of trying to do this. And I think we can save some manpower that will be used otherwise in the streets that we don't have time to do, but I won't know that until we get into the program.
You said a long bed pickup was how many yards?
About 4 yards.
So that'll still be $750. Yes. So as long as you've got smaller than a
yes, sir.
Long bed pickup truck, you're good.
10 bags of leaves, small piles of junk that we are picking up now, they're not an issue. It's the mountains of stuff that we can't deal with.
So we currently have a $750 charge in the bill for curbside pickup, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's mandatory.
Yeah.
Bobby, I appreciate the efforts you've undertaken here. You spent a lot of time with the ordinance. I'm happy with the ordinance. As Councilwoman McPherson notes, maybe there's some tweaking, but that was a long time coming. I appreciate it. I'm very sensitive to this fund and all of these enterprise, these user funds paying for themselves, and this one does not and has not. And in fact, we lose quite a bit of money on doing this. I understand that there's abuse in the system, and I think that you are targeting that with 4 cubic yard. I have some, let me ask you this, on the garbage, the first cart's $12.50 and the second cart's $12.50. Is that what we currently charge? Okay, so I like the structure, I like how you're putting this together, and this whole conversation came about when we were talking about using technology, apps to help us reduce these costs. Where I have some heartburn here is on the bulk item schedule. This is a required fee that we bill to our citizens every month for this. But the moment that they decide to use it, because many people will go most of the year and put out just a few things all year long, but they still pay this fee every month. But on this bulk item schedule, you have to go and buy these tickets. They're $10 a piece. And that covers items like this: bicycles, mattresses, box springs, stoves, sofas, the whole list of things on here. I think that by asking folks folks to pay an extra $10 for each of these things and $20 in some cases, you may discourage the use of this service. And that's not the intent of what we're doing here. I would be much more comfortable if we deleted this bulk item schedule, tried the rest of this for the first year, and see where we're at after that. If, and you know, the council can weigh in on that. My position is I would like to delete that out and see if we have any discussion about it.
Well, the problem I see with it is it's going to cause them to wait until the citywide cleanup, which is next week. And then that's when we put the stuff out.
And then we get to pay for it?
Yeah, then we get to pay for it.
Now, you know, and I didn't mention that, but what we provide, there's no additional fees to based.
Right. So that's his point. So they would just save it in the backyard
as well. And if we get, God help us, if we get a hurricane or something, we got bunches of limbs and stuff.
That's different.
We pick those up.
Right, you know, this, I'm just saying, why would they pay an extra fee to put it out now when they can wait and see like
the
cleanup
section
comes
I'm
along?
talking about is not about storm damage or limbs or leaves.
You're talking about specifically the bulk item schedule that's in the little box.
Okay, I have this question. I'm being charged $750 a month, right? Haven't used it. Don't use it. Then I decide to do some spring cleaning, say, and I decide to put a box spring mattress out there. I'm already paying $750 a month. You multiply that by 12. Then this one time I do this, you're gonna charge me $10. Is that what you're saying?
But there's a reason why the 750 charges. We have to run the route anyway. Now, an app is a great solution, but not everybody has a smartphone to be able to work an app with. And what about those that we miss? We got to go back. So it's just as easy just to go ahead and run the route and collect everything. That's what I look at. I'm a little bit old school in this because I've tried it 9 different ways. And the ones that you, like Johnson Street over here, you know, we've got some senior citizens that don't, you know, they're not technology driven. And they put stuff out all the time. You're going to have to run the street. You're just going to have to.
I understand that, and that's why my alternative is to just take this section out to see where we are in a year after using the other tools that you put in place. This is a fairly robust change that you've got without this.
Let me answer.
Bulk item list.
Let's say that Mr. McGill, we'll use you for an example. Let's say you've got some trees that you're putting in your backyard and you bring a pretty nice sized pile of limbs to the street. Without this schedule, we can't collect it.
Again, he's not talking about that section.
I'm only at the bulk item schedule. I understand what you're saying.
Well, you're talking about the $10.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I would like to take out. And that's up to the council, but that's what I'd like to do. And my proposal is that we take that out and look at this again in a year. Let's see what the impact was.
We need to build a baseline, and it's going to take a year to do.
Because we really are just shooting in the dark right here. This may be an overkill. Frankly, it may not be necessary.
No idea how much I have worried about that.
Are you saying that we're going to pick up all this stuff and not charge $10 as washer and dryers and couches and whatever?
Refrigerators. I'd like to see us adopt what you've presented here tonight to take care of the situation now. Long-term, what I'd like us to be able to do is work out something with Carroll County with the convenience centers and that sort of thing so that we're not paying these massive tipping fees to take everything to Douglas County. Well, I don't know if how realistic that, I mean, I can throw a bike in the back of my truck and take it down to the convenience center myself. Everybody can't do that, but I can do that with some things. We do a free spring, well, it's going to be fall pickup this time, that's offered to everybody that wants to put out almost anything. We doing tires this year?
Yes.
Okay. So we do that. There's no charge to anybody or anything else. But I just don't see how we can continue to do these real big items because of the cost of the tipping fees. I don't see how the program is self-sustaining.
What we will do, what the plan is, once we implement whichever version of the new program we're going to do, we're going to track everything. How many washers, how many dryers, we're going to track all that. And see how it goes.
You don't know right now how many of those you do, do you? So you don't know what the impact is.
Nope. If we take anything to Carroll County, we take anything to Carroll County, it all go to Douglas.
You know, I checked, Carroll's bulk fee is $50 a ton, it's $10 a ton cheaper than Douglas, but it's
way down past Carroll.
And their yard-based fee is not much cheaper than that.
You use it up on gas, it's going to come.
Will they allow us to put anything at the convenience center that's near Midway Church, a little further south, before the triangle? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, remember this is much bulk. Loaded in the truck, it's kind of hard to separate stuff and, you know, leave certain things out. It takes manpower to do that.
Everything don't go in the same dumpsters, what he said.
And I used to, when I lived outside the city limits, I used to take all my garbage down there, including the, recyclables and all that sort of thing.
I tend to agree with Councilman McDougal. Not only, and Councilmember Marshman, not only is it going to be, sticker shock, pardon the pun, but I think it's going to be hard to control. Having stickers, coming to City Hall, buying a sticker, putting the sticker on whatever it is, the crews knowing what. Okay. I just,
we can definitely leave that part out.
I think we've made a big, with the ordinance and with the first part of what you've got here, I agree that in a year, we're going to have a lot better picture of where we are, how much money we're losing, and if we're still losing money, then we have to do something else. But I think that's a little cumbersome, and to Councilmember Marston's point, most people, I know in my own case, we pay $750 a month, and we may use it twice a year, so.
That's what I'm saying. I could see overkill. Somebody always putting stuff out there. But one time a year, you put something out there and you got to pay $10 when you multiply that 12 times 750. And then you're not using it. Then all of a sudden one time you do it and then you got to pay extra $10. That just don't sound good to me.
If when we adopt a fee schedule, we can look at it anytime we need to.
Exactly.
You can follow up with this, and if you need to come back to us in 2, 3, 6, 12 months, you can do that. I want to make a motion.
I have another question. I see the freezers.
Discussion.
Yeah, still in discussion. I see freezers and refrigerators. I thought we had a freon problem with those items.
The Logan County landfill charges us $15 for us to take a freezer or refrigerator over that has Freon in it.
Okay.
But now, Councilman McDougal and I talked over it today, and I've got the last 6 months weight on the actual, it says freezer there, and they charge you, it's itemized. There's not a ton of those on there.
Okay, so let me make a motion, and then if you want to do that during discussion, I'm going to make a motion to approve the solid waste fee schedule by modifying it to delete the bulk item schedule to become effective January 1, 2019.
I second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Marshman. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous.
Come back and visit it.
Thank you.
As we look at it.
Thank you, Bobby. Tab E, Public Works, Pete.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is a request for engineering services to evaluate and identify alternatives to upgrade or expand the existing north wastewater plant and/or divert from the north plant service areas to the west wastewater plant for treatment. The background for the need for this is due to the lack of capacity that we currently have, and the fact that in the next several years it's projected that we're going to have probably 1,000 plus homes, residential homes built in the area. Another thing that's very timely about this is early as last week we received a draft renewal for the North Plant from EPD, which indicates that they're going to reduce our discharge limits to more stringent requirements. So this will be very timely that we can incorporate that in this evaluation. This is a budgeted item, and the staff is recommending that we engage PC Simonton and Associates to assist the city for these engineering services. An amount not to exceed $20,000.
This was, you said it was a budgeted item?
Yes, sir.
Can I just real quick, this is just a housekeeping item. Each of these cover sheets used to say funding source, and then it would show that it was a budgeted item. We need to get back to that. I went back and looked at some of them to make sure that I wasn't wrong. If you could do that, that would be very helpful, because we understand the funding source, we understand the impact, and if we know it's a budgeted item, it helps us as we move through this.
Are you suggesting that you haven't memorized the meaning of the GM code there?
I'm ignoring that. I don't have any questions on this. I'm okay with it, but I'll yield to see if somebody else does. Okay, if not, I'll move that we engage PC Simonton and Associates for engineering services for the purpose of identifying alternatives for enhancements to the North Plant and/or the transfer of flows from the North Plant service area to the West Plant in the amount not to exceed $20,000.
Guess that one.
Sufficient seconds have been, let the record reflect that council member, I think Carter actually made that. I heard it out of both. This year's not as good as that one also. Any further discussion? All in favor? Just move it on. All right. Item number 2.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. These are both budget items.
Good job.
He listens.
I'm paying attention.
So now just change it on the cover sheet.
That's right. This year, when purchasing our police filters, we ran into an issue with how many interceptors we're going to get available for 2019. Changing their body style, how they produce them, the body make, and also the engines. So from 2019 to 2020, the price went up pretty exponentially. We didn't find that out until after the budget got we went to go order our vehicles. Nobody had any of them. There was only one that actually had the 6 that we needed to purchase and that were budgeted, and that was Wade Ford. I called just about every Ford dealership in Georgia and finally found 6 in our color scheme. And I could go more into detail on why Ford only produced it or what kind of brought that problem around, but we did find 6, so we won't be buying them, or I'm asking from Wade Ford this year. We'll start September budget. We'll kind of get with the local dealers in the need and to have them go ahead and order.
So you checked with Barrich and they didn't have this, huh?
No, he didn't order. The only dealerships that got any were ones that pre-ordered the Explorers. And heck, they closed their order bids in June. They reached their max amount of Explorers.
Nick, do you have any reason to believe that these would not be available if these were approved tonight and you go tomorrow to order?
Yes.
Okay.
She cannot, Wade Ford is kind of doing us an honorary favor by holding these vehicles for us. They were just being kind, really, to the city. We've done business with them before. We bought 750s from them last year. So we called them, they had 6. They wanted, the money right then to hold them.
We've discussed these Explorers before. We've discussed that they're changing, so I want to go ahead and make a motion to discuss if they can do that. I make a motion that we allow staff to purchase 6 2019 Ford Explorer Police Interceptors from Wade Ford in the total amount of $172,794.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion?
Go pick them up right now. Before they sell them. I'll drive on that.
Don't worry, I was thinking everybody was strict about it. The second item,
Wait a minute, any further discussion? No. All in favor? Unanimous. No.
It did seem easy, but it wasn't that easy.
Yeah, they're gonna cost a lot. If we don't get these, they're gonna cost a lot more with the new models.
They really will, so next year we'll have to come up with something. Or wait a little while. This next item, I'm pretty excited about. For about the past year and a half, I've been doing research and reviewing programs that would allow us to go to an electronic work order system as well as inventory management. I could get really in depth with it, but it integrates this and it is going to be like a sole source. I've demoed probably about 8 or 9 of them. This one kind of catered to us. The city of Newnan is actually using this program. It'll help with asset management, work orders that come in. Right now we're just doing a paper work order system, so if anybody has any kind of issue, they have to actually come to the shop or send a text or shoot an email. It's really hard to keep up with. So this program will allow employees and people in the city to log on, submit a work order, we'll get it and allocate it accordingly.
You can say, is this budgeted too?
Budgeted.
That's a good thing.
You said that at first, it was 2.
Okay, that's why I'm sure it came it all on.
It'll come from the general fund. We will own this software, which was another selling point. We'll never have to update it. Once we purchase it, install it, start using it, it's ours. They can never take it away. That's
If they come out and let me still do buy those or what?
We'll buy those, but we're not forced to.
Okay.
But it's usually an improvement in software that we probably enjoy the perks and the benefits to that update.
Alright, I'll make a motion to propose that the city allows the purchase of a collective data program in the amount of $17,200.
Second.
Have a motion seconded by Councilmember Marshman. Any discussion? Not all in favor?
I'm good to go.
Unanimous.
You explained that. Explained it to us previously.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Go get those. Go get them. Get them.
Yeah, just grab a couple of those guys out of the last aisle, they can drive one back. Get that guy in the brown shirt.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have to go get him or the other?
Basically, Halloween.
It's a way for Is it Savannah?
Trick or treat. Let it be recorded that I was Bob.
That's the best.
That's the best I can do tonight.
Jesus.
Attempted bribe, yeah.
Get that stuck in your tooth in the microphone.
You trying to keep us out of your office or what?
Thank you.
Trying to get rid of that old candy. Trying to get rid of that old candy. I've been down there, that's all.
Last year's Halloween candy.
So, first of all, before we get into the agenda items, if you allow me, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce our new police chaplain. Is that okay?
Absolutely, and that's my fault. It was even written down for me and I skipped it.
Keep going.
Never mind, he left.
I met him earlier.
You met him earlier? Okay. Anyway, we have a new chaplain, great guy, is really on the ball. He's already started arranging events with some local churches where we can do police safety stuff for them and things, so we're really happy. So hopefully we'll have item that I have is the Carroll County School System SRO program. I obviously sent the wrong one to Alyssa, and I apologize. The one I've given you is the correct one. It pays for 4 officers, 2 high school, 1 at Blanton Hinesman, and 1 at Warwick Avenue. The total cost is with us by Carroll County School System. The copy has been delivered to Carroll County School Board of Directors review, and hopefully we'll bring that back soon.
Chief, are there any changes to this agreement?
Other than amounts, no, I think pretty much we just updated the amounts. The last agreement that we had in place was 2012, so we just renewed it, and we did it because we had to do one with Douglas County. They had been agreeing it without a problem, but we needed to get it done.
Okay.
Right.
Are we going to turn a motion?
I make a motion to approve the Carroll County SRO agreement with Carroll County Board of Education.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember McDougal. Any discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor? Unanimous.
The second item I have is Douglas County School System SRO program. This is, we got purchased from, California, but we were able to offer there at, Moore Lake Elementary School. We met with the superintendent of Douglas County, myself and Captain Parker, recently, and, showed him the agreement. He said if we would have the officer start and open first, he could go ahead and put it in and sign it, which he did, and so we'll have the officer start and then open.
Are the terms of that agreement pretty much the same as the Carroll County agreement?
That's exactly the same, yes, sir.
I make the motion to approve the Douglas County SRO agreement with the Douglas County Board of Education.
Second that motion.
Second, and I just want to add for the record that Councilmember McDougal, you stated, followed this one very closely and would not take no to an answer. And he won't take that credit, but I'll give him that. He stayed on this, and Trent North, who came from Carroll County, agreed to that. So we will have SROs in every school in the city of Ulrica, and I think that's great.
And Mr. North is excited about it and very.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
I'll give you the bird dog.
Now that we've purchased the new cars, we have to put in those new cars. So the next 4 items will be the equipment for those cars. The first one is the watch guard in-car camera systems. Those camera systems do come with a body camera. So all of those included. The total cost of that is $36,660. They are a safety item for us. We've used them for several years. They've been awesome. We're working on using the same company that we do our system in-house as far as the interview room. The system is so good.
I'll make a motion to allow the Newark Police Department to purchase 6 in-car camera systems and integrated body cameras from watch guard video for $36,660.
Second.
All right, y'all. Stop. Who's taking it?
I really like that item. I stayed out of the last 2, but this one.
We're gonna arm up there.
Yeah, he's divided up into 4, and it's not like we were going to buy the cars and not equip them.
I know. Can we package this and vote on all of it at once? Is there a way to do that?
You want me to just call them all out at once?
He's down to.
No.
What's on the radio system?
I mean, because they're all part of the same.
The next one is.
Let's approve it.
Okay.
We got a motion, a second. All in favor? It is unanimous.
Radios.
The next one is the 6 in-car emergency radio systems through Motorola Solutions, also sole provider, $19,131.
I make a motion that we allow the police department to purchase the 6 in-car emergency radio systems from Motorola Solutions for $19,131.
Second motion.
Second by Councilmember Marson, all in favor? They're unanimous.
The next one is the, purchase the patrol vehicle emergency equipment. This is where they're gonna do the installations of all the equipment. This is through Metropolitan Communications in Carrollton. They're the ones that, we've used for the last couple of years, has been, done very well, so we're happy with them, so we'd like to approve that. $47,662.
I make a motion we allow the police department to use Metropolitan Communications to purchase and install all necessary emergency equipment in the 6 new patrol vehicles for the amount of $47,662.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember McPherson. All in favor? Thank you.
And the last one is for the, purchase of the Panasonic Toughbook laptops to go in the vehicles. This is through Synergistic software that handles our RMS system, so we get our equipment through them, $7,620.
Make a motion, we approve.
Motion made by Councilmember Marson.
Second. We didn't do that. Okay, I'll just
Second by Councilmember McDougal. We didn't do the whole motion here. Any revisions? All in favor?
That's what you get for making this agenda so long, whoever was in charge of that.
Thank you very much. I moved to pass on, one involved in an accident about 30 minutes ago, on 61 near McDonald's, person turned in front of the officer. I think you guys, I believe.
Was this one of the old cars?
Yes, sir.
Is he okay?
Yes, ma'am. I can pick it up.
Gosh.
I got a question. When you get these 6, Chief, where does that leave you with take home?
Captain Parker will address that.
We're still a few out, some of that you're also still going to be sharing.
How many?
I believe now 5 after tonight. It was 4, but by next year we should be able to start passing down some, getting rid of some of the older cars.
We are passing down one investigator vehicle, I think. We talked to, Nick about that, and we are gonna, pass down one of those vehicles for, another department.
Chief, I don't go out in that Avanti building a whole lot, but I do go out there some. There's a lot of police cars out there. Are those in service? Are they not in service? Am I just seeing vehicles that are being parked out there?
Down at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in service. You have day shift cars, night shift cars.
Some of the cars, I'll talk to you separately. Some of them are really, really dirty, so I know they're not being used, but we'll talk. I just want an update on it. Thank you.
No problem.
Sir?
Good evening. This is your September update. And next month we'll just have one financial update, but this month we were able to get caught up. So September was the end of our fiscal year for 2018. We had a 9-month year. So the September numbers you're seeing are not final September numbers. We take about 2 months to close out the year, and the audit will begin in January. Seems like we just did that. First up is cash, comparing last September to this September. You can see our total checking accounts went from $5 million to $7 million. General fund increased slightly. Water sewer fund is where we're seeing the largest increase. Now, at the end of 2017, we did give it a surplus of $644,000 to help with the debt, so that's part of that. But we did have rate increases this year, significant rate increases, so we saw a big turnaround in our cash there. Sanitation and solid waste, as Bobby mentioned, at the end of 2017, we had to write off over $384,000 in losses that we built up there. You see a negative $365 in the cash last year, compared to this year, $57,000. So we basically wiped the slate clean as of January 1st. So that's the loss we have incurred in the first 9 months of 2018. The last 3 items are our SPLOST bank accounts. We still have 3 active ones, 2008 SPLOST from Carroll, and a 2015 Carroll SPLOST, and a 2016 Douglas County SPLOST. Next is our growth. So this is as of September. This is for new construction. We already have 154 building permits. Those are residential, but I know we've added, I think we're close to 200 already since October. Probably just whispered 217, so significant increase in building permits from last year. Taps, water and sewer taps are in line with that. Nothing commercial as of this point in 2018. This is our income statement for water and sewer, comparing year-to-date as of September 2017 to September 2018. Now, you can see we've caught up in our loss in 2018 compared to 2019. If you look at, if we look at the total revenue from 2017 to 2018, that's where you see a significant increase due to our rate increases. And then we do have an increase in expense as well, but I want to point out the debt you see has grown from 1.2 to 1.7 million. This is where it's a little bit tricky because we're comparing a 12-month budget year to a 9-month budget year. So the complete debt expense is already included in those 9-month numbers for 2018, where it's not in 2017. So if that had been shown evenly, we would actually be looking better in 2018.
On the commercial side, the Taco Bell, that the improvements, what, last year? So none of that got into this year.
Taco Bell? It was at the end of last year. Okay, sanitation and solid waste. Again, you see a significant increase in the revenue that we've collected at this point last year compared to, this year compared to last year. And our expense is also up, but our CPI, so our per cart fee went up for waste industries. You see that in the sanitation expense. Also, our solid waste expense has increased. That's where we see the increased tipping fees and additional personnel there. Depreciation is up because we added more of the dump trucks this year, 3 new dump trucks. So, still showing a loss, but it's less than last year, which is an improvement.
So even before we make the changes that we just made, we already have improved by some $27,000, $28,000. We're not where we need to be, but we're headed in the right direction. So maybe we did a good thing tonight.
Correct. I should point out, though, that in the miscellaneous revenue that you see in 2018, the majority of that is a surplus from the general fund. So this was our last year to have a surplus, was from general fund to sanitation solid waste fund, because we knew the loss we were expecting, we had kind of an acceptable loss, which would be less than our depreciation, because depreciation is in the cash expense.
Okay.
That's what we were trying to budget for, so we had to budget surplus. So the loss would actually be greater. Sales tax revenue has increased quite a bit from last year, going from 1.5 to 1.7, almost 1.8 million. So that's our local option sales tax. This is in Carroll County and Douglas County. Next is our hotel tax revenue. Now at the beginning of the year, we hired a firm to come in and audit all of our hotels. You can see we've increased $100,000 from last year at this point. However, we did raise our tax rate as well, so that's part of it. Water purchases are down. I always like pointing that out. We've had significant savings there this year with the changes that Pete and his crew have done out at the water plant. And just to point out, number of employees have increased from 135 to 155. That's permanent, but it is full-time and part-time. And to end on a positive note, this is our self-funded insurance. This is 12 months on the plan, so this is a full year. On the left, you see the payments we made to United Healthcare in the previous year. These are actual checks cut and put in their bank, whereas now, every payroll, we're moving the employee and the employer contributions to our bank account, and money is only drafted out for actual expenses to the doctor, to the pharmacies, or for administrative costs. So you can see the cash outlay difference there of $375,000 in 12 months. Question?
It's not going to be worse. It's not going to be bad.
Yeah, and remember, you're not comparing apples to apples, because last year's United Healthcare premiums are based on the lower head count.
That's true.
Right? So if you, and the old rate.
Right.
So if you raise the rate and raise the head count, the savings is ridiculous.
Because there was a significant renewal rate.
Yeah, what was it, 22% or something?
Yeah, they were
22%?
That's what they
They
quoted.
just haircuts every year, no matter what
Motivated to
happens.
change.
So in real dollars, these are probably closer to $500,000 than
A
$375,000.
lot, whatever it is.
Yep.
Be interesting.
T-Splosh? Alright. So on November 6th, there will be an item for the voters of Carroll County to vote on is T-Splosh, Transportation Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax.
Went the wrong way. You jinxed us.
As I was saying, this will be a transportation sales tax on the November 6th ballot. Can you read the slide?
Manually.
There it is.
Okay, very
There you go.
good.
Back up.
Okay, so what is T-Splosh? As I said, this is for transportation. It's a 1% sales tax, so a penny on the dollar for all purchases in the city except, what was it? Pharmacy, fuel.
Pharmacy, what's the other thing? Certain food items. That's right, autos.
It is to be used for transportation improvements. Again, this is the Carroll County side of the city, which 60% of our residents are in Carroll County. At this point, we're estimating $1.2 million.
For the right price, you can silence that.
Oh my God.
It was quieter.
I was hoping to never hear that.
Real good.
Gordon used to say for the right price.
Estimated $1.2 million for the city every year for 5 years. So this can be used for paving, resurfacing, bridges, signaling, striping, and trails. So right now, the council's adopted a SPLOST program for the next 5 years. We talked about that, I think, in April. And we've also just adopted the budget, which we also looked at capital projects out. So when I looked at the budget, what we had looked at for the next 3 years, we have $1 million budgeted for streets, which could be reallocated to other projects because the T-SPLOST would give us money to be used solely for transportation. So that's positive for the city. Again, it's on the ballot November 6th, and if passed, we would begin collection, it would be collected April 1st, 2019, and it would take 2 months or so before the city would see that cash.
Okay, let me ask a question right here, because this has been asked on Facebook repeatedly, is what projects, I'm just gonna ask the question the way it's been asked to me, what projects are specified for the city of Billerica for that $1.2 million?
There aren't specific projects specified, there are categories of projects.
And those are located where?
They're not geographic, they're just categorical.
Where can a person see those lists, that list?
We submitted it to the county, but I don't know that it's publicly posted anywhere.
I would like to see that publicly posted.
We could do that.
Because
Is this on the web, on our web? So we can put it with this.
any information is better than what is out there now as far as we're concerned, and I think I'm not suggesting someone one way or the other, but we do need to educate everybody and let them know what the money's going to be used for. $1.2 million is a lot of money. And so if we've got any generalities of how that money's supposed to be spent, I think we owe it to the taxpayers to educate them on that.
Redevelopment powers. Another item on the November 6th ballot, the City of Billerica voters will have the opportunity to authorize the city to exercise redevelopment powers. So this, in Georgia, this is a way to finance projects in areas that are blighted or slow to develop. It generates minimal tax dollars, areas that generate minimal tax dollars. And we'll talk about more in detail. So basically, an area or a district is identified, and then a partnership is developed with a private developer. From there, the city would approve the plan, and then a bond is issued. This is not a GO bond, it's a revenue bond. And from there, a baseline value of that property, of those properties is declared. So basically, we know what the tax being received is already on that baseline value. Then the redevelopment is done, and then the increased property values, the taxes from that increased property values repay the bond that was issued.
When you say increased property values, you're talking about in the TAD?
Correct. In that area that was not developing, that was blighted, the area that's being redeveloped. So what you're doing is future increases in property taxes in that area are basically pledged to repay that bond, which gives you the money to develop that area. Who guarantees the bond? It's not the city, it is the private developer that the relationship is established with. Some ways that this can be used is new construction, renovation, demolition of existing buildings, the public works projects that go along with this, new housing, property clearing, green spaces. What it does not do is create increases to the public. So what the city was already getting, the city will continue to get. What we're talking about is the increase in the value of that area that's being redeveloped. It does not freeze the millage rates, and it does not take property from private citizens. But what does it mean on the positive side? Jobs for our community, increasing in the property values, again, in areas that are not likely to develop or would be expensive to develop, keeps the sales tax at home for us, promotes growth, again, in these areas that are not going to likely grow, pays for economic development without raising taxes, and increases opportunity and competitiveness for things that we want in our community. So where could this happen in Billerica? Just areas that have, as Tom says, bad topography that would be difficult to develop, rock, or state-protected waters.
Sarah, is there a way to put this on, is it on the Facebook page? Is there a way to do that with PowerPoint? Can you automate? You could link to, put a link on it?
City's website.
Could you do that?
Yeah, because it's on the city's website.
Because the biggest question that people ask is, who's going to be responsible for this if it doesn't happen? Are the city taxpayers 20 years from now going to be responsible for paying for this development? And the answer to that is no. So, any questions? Okay, number 4.
Council did approve our 2019 budget, and with that, we discussed utility rate increases for 2019. We're proposing that the rate increases be effective January 1st to give us time to get the word out, get it advertised. What we've proposed are 5% increases to the variable rates for water, so the base would not change. This is just the variable rate, so as you use more water, you would feel a greater increase in your rate. If you're a lower user, the increase won't be as great. and then 30% to the variable rates for sewer. Again, not the base. And then lastly, a $2 increase to our garbage monthly rate. So here you can see it seems a little bit convoluted because we do have various tiers. This is to promote conservation. So the more you use, the more you pay, trying to help people conserve water. But that first one is our water residential rates as of now compared to 2019. So the increase is a 5% increase there. Those are the variable rates. So that's per 1,000 gallons how much the customer pays. You do have a difference between inside city limits and outside city limits. And that's residential. Go on down a little bit, Elisa. Next is, this is again still water. This is for non-residential. And again, it's a 5% increase, 2018 compared to 2019. Next, you see sewer, 2018 to 2019. So inside city limits, we're going from $6.89 to $8.96 per thousand. That's based off of their water usage. And then garbage, you see first cart, right now is $12.50, and we're proposing $14.50 for that. This is, we do have a senior discount here for low-income seniors. That would be $10.88, so they get a 25% increase. And then if you keep going down, Lisa, I've shown what the average increase would be. So a resident that uses $4,500 gallons, their increase to water would be 84 cents, their increase to sewer on a monthly basis would be $9.32, and then a $2 increase for sanitation. So this is a total of $12.16 per month. And then next, if they qualify for low income, go on down, please, Elisa. Can you scroll down to the top of the next page? Elisa. Sorry, let me scroll. Thank you. Last is a discounted senior. So their water would increase 54 cents, sewer would be $6.21, and sanitation would be $1.39. So their total increase would be $8.14.
What is the percentage, what is that number at now, the number of people that have qualified for senior discount?
I thought last time we looked at it was 38%.
How many? How many people?
That'd be over 200. Of the previous 671.
Times what percentage?
While you're figuring that out, this is year 2 of our financial freedom, our independence push for about 2020. So, you know, we're doing good. We've proved that we can try to balance the budget. In some cases, we're in the black now for the first time in I don't know how long. But I want us to look at that rate, the senior, and see if this council decides to raise that number, then that's, you know, their call. But I hope, it's my desire that we can look at this in the middle of the year and decide that either we don't have to go up as much next year as we thought we did before last year, or maybe not go up at all. So
we were hoping that with growth, that third year may not be necessary. So that's our best hope.
We'll have some growth too, so that's going to help.
Yeah, dare we say, Bobby, that we have a shot at 300 houses next year?
Yeah. So we're over 200 now?
We're already over 200, which was our goal.
200 new houses permits.
290.
We've got probably 30 more sitting, waiting to be processed, so.
Yeah, we're gonna be at 250.
Got a few small business. We've added some new small businesses too.
Let me ask about the contract with Waste Industries. That contract, last year we missed being able to rebid on that because there was a 60-day notice provision. We're now in late October.
Yes, December 1, we need to notify. I've got it on the calendar.
So by December 1, we need to be looking at that contract.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Are we gonna need a motion on this?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve utility rates as presented to be effective for all utility bills sent on or after January 1, 2019.
Seconded by Councilmember Marshall. All in favor?
See how hard it was to get multiple seconds on that one, because it hurts.
It is approved. Tom, with a very quick city manager report, I'm sure.
We got one more.
Yeah, that would change the cash bond amounts.
We got cash bonds.
Yep.
Okay, go.
All right, so I had a meeting with the judge and the solicitor in our municipal court, and we had a conversation about how our bond amounts compare to the other municipal courts around us in the Bremen, Temple, Douglasville, Carrollton area. They did a comparison. I think I included that in your packet. And what we were mostly focusing on were a set of fees that we had at $105 where we were just consistently low, pretty much compared to all of the other cities. So most of the adjustments we're recommending are from 105 to 150. There are some others. There's maybe one that went down and where we were just out of line. So this is our best effort to not get ahead of where the surrounding cities are, but to move into the middle of that range of cash bond amount. So if you have questions, probably can't answer them, but...
Well, let me just ask one anyway. Give it a try. What is VGCSA?
Violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances
So
Act.
we were significantly higher on that one, but almost all of the rest of these
Are increases.
are increases.
Right.
Okay.
I notice you made them effective next week. Is that, get a little money this year?
Maybe, not in the fiscal year that we're in, but not in the calendar year. I think it would take on into 19 to become effective.
I move that we modify the cash bond amounts.
Could I add one thing in? If we could, just for the purpose of the record, to change the title of it from cash bond to cash bond and/or standard fines, because about 90% of these you don't get arrested for, and you're really not having to post a cash bond, but it is the standard fine that the judge is going to impose in court. So just in our minutes, I'd like for it to reflect that it's the schedule for cash bond and standard fines.
Okay, I move that we modify the cash bond and standard fine amounts detailed in the attached spreadsheet for offenses incurred on or after November 1, 2018.
Have a motion second. All in favor? Unanimous? Now, city manager report.
Sweet, please.
Isn't it great to just reduce our meeting minute?
That's by about 2 hours.
No, it doesn't. We're going on.
Session would have taken 3 hours and a half.
We're going to have quite a bit of these in the consent agenda, so that we will eliminate half this
I
agenda.
think what happened is the agenda is just as long as before, instead of dividing it up, and we had two very long presentations. I don't know if there's a way to make sure those don't end up on the same night, but the agenda is just as long as when we were...
This should be the last one.
Okay.
So they say.
People can't stay.
The November meeting, I probably have already 8 or 9 items that'll go on there, but they're all relatively straightforward, simple things. And then into the holidays, I just don't, the things that we're working on, you have, so. All right, so let's talk about funding. So last time, when we went through the status of our water and sewer projects, we had identified 8 current projects, 4 for water, 4 for sewer. As it would, almost always happen, one week after I put all that together, it changed. So what we have now are still 4 water projects on that first sheet, and now 5 sewer projects. So what we have determined through the lift station review process is not only do we have a bottleneck under 20 near Walmart, but that same general section of the system also bottlenecks under 78 between Centennial Park and City Hall, and the subsequent line that runs north of there to the interceptor just south of the railroad. So the sewer line just west of City Hall is also an 8-inch line. So you've got an 8-inch line under I-20. It wiggles through the neighborhood and back behind Ingles and Food Depot and finally gets down to 78. It bottlenecks again at 78, and then it stays in a 8-inch line all the way until it gets to the interceptor that goes over to the West Plant. So that looks like about another $1 million. So we're up to $13.5 million to do those 9 projects. So when we look at the debt payment for that, assuming that we can borrow that money from GFA, the interest rates at GFA right now are 2.75% or lower, depending on the program. And depending on the program, the amounts are limited to either a $3 million cap or a $25 million cap, depending on the program. What we're looking at in the model that Melissa did for us from Raftellus that we're basing our rate increases on was that 2.75%, but at the time that we did the model, which was, back in the early summer, we were using just a ballpark number of $10 million as the debt amount, because we hadn't gotten into the projects enough to have estimates. That's now 13.5. When Melissa did the work initially, and this would have been summer of 17, and we came to you initially with the idea of the rate increases, we were looking at 75% sewer, 21% water. And we proposed splitting that up over 3 years, which is what we're doing. Now we have a 13.5 debt number, but the good thing is that we got 219 housing starts, which we didn't budget and which weren't in the model. And if you remember what Sarah just showed us, our housing starts in the prior year were only around 50. Right, so we missed the revenue budget, which is at least compensating for the extra $3.5 million in debt. What we're looking at now is the next project. The piece that I can't speak confidently about is the economy going to help us with this? Right now, the 219 housing starts that we have processed and the 40 or so, 30 or 40 that are in Nyrie's office is not because of us. It's because of the economy, it's because of our location, it's because of the fact that we have 1,000 vacant lots that are developed but unbuilt, right? So this is, we can take credit for processing the permits, but we didn't create the engine behind this. The model that we're using assumes that the economy stays healthy. So we got to keep that in mind, and we're going to have to make an adjustment at the next downturn, because the money that's being generated by the housing starts in water and sewer is more than $1 million a year. And $1 million is about the bond payment or the debt payment on 15 million in debt. So effectively, we're generating enough money to pay this debt off just by new housing starts. And when that goes to zero, which is what's going to happen, it's not going to go from 200 to 100, it's going to go from 200 or 300 to zero, right? You remember what 2008, 9, and 10 were like, then we're going to have to adjust again.
Yeah, but isn't a downturn different from a crash? That was a crash.
That was a crash, and hopefully we don't see that. But when housing turns down on us, it's going to hurt our bottom line in water and sewer. And that bottom line is what we're making these debt payments with. The other way out of this is we grow. And unfortunately, the place that we're going to grow is where we don't have good sewer capacity. We have good water, we have good roads, but we don't have good sewer, and that's the 61 corridor. So I've made a note there of a couple of things that we've talked about. The Goldsworth Farm, Williams Farm, whatever you call that thing at Williams Mountain, which is now Avamore, 220-acre project is proposed. That's the area that we're looking for land to do another industrial park. You're familiar with the site that was purported to be Kroger there at Hickory Level across from Quick Trip. That's on 61. You've got raw land on South Van Wert and Hickory Level. So all of that combined is the prime area for us to grow into the future, but we don't have sewer capacity. When we look at that prospect of adding sewer capacity out there, it is as complicated as any project I have ever looked at. And the way that I'm thinking about tackling it is divided up into 4 pieces. So we would do a conceptual design process that would spend most of next year. Then we would turn that over to somebody that would do a more technical review and adjust it. Before we take it to actual bid, we would select an engineer who would actually do the engineering design, and then we would build it. The problem with doing that is, one, I'm thinking it's going to cost another $10 million, maybe more, maybe 15, maybe I don't even know, and it's even worse. That's going to be a bond issue. That's potentially half the cost of the sewer plant that we have now, that we're struggling to pay for. We've got to do this not just because of what we can see, which is Avamore, Industrial Park, the Kroger site and all that, but the part that what we can't see. We got no idea what those landowners are going to do with that land and how much growth potential exists on Hickory Level, both sides of South Van Wert, both sides of 61 down to the end of the city limits. So what I'm saying to you is the only way we can do this is to grow our revenue organically, because when we finish these rate increases, we might can make a very, very, very small annual increase, but basically we're done. When we get up around $90 a month, average water and sewer bill, that's about it. Atlanta's about 110, and that's not where we need to go. So the way out of this is to grow. And the 3 places that we've talked about growing, other than the 61 corridor, is by virtue of the Mirror Lake Connector and the North Bypass. So that's, in my mind, the focus of our economic development in terms of new growth in areas that are currently undeveloped. Is that a handful?
Yeah, let's get to know about it.
All right, so now we get to the decisions. We've got to make a group of decisions in this conceptual phase. Do we build a new plant on the south end of town? That sounds horrible to me. So the alternative is a really big lift station. If that's the route we go, then we have to decide where that force main is going to run, because it is a long way to the west plant from the south end of town, especially if we annex south of town in order to do the industrial park. Another decision that we've got to make is how ambitious is our planning horizon going to be? Are we going to limit ourselves to our current city limits? Are we going to look at potential annexation? If you notice the map that was up when Ron asked Anna the question about the gray area, there was a future growth, right? So are we going to try to provide capacity for that when we do this, or are we going to kick that one down the road? Another thing that we got to do in that capacity conceptual design is decide how big of a force main are we going to put in, because you don't want to do it but once, right? But you don't want to overbuild it, because that's wasted money. But if you underbuild it, then you're in the situation we're in right now, but the pipe under 20 and under 78 and running over at City Hall is too small. So we save money back in the day, but it's going to cost multiple times more to replace it than the money that we saved. So we have to make that decision again. And we've also got to consider whether we can do this in phases, or whether we have to bite the bullet and do this as a project. So, what's the next step? On November the 1st, we're going to meet with Brennan and we're going to get the lift station report. He is currently the most knowledgeable person in Billerica about sewer, by virtue of the project that he's conducting. You've already approved the money for us to do the design of the little quick fix there at 20, where we're going to hook a couple of manholes together to provide some relief on the north side. But that's not the whole solution. That's just a quick fix. We need to move ahead and select an engineer to help us work through the conceptual phase, whether that's Brennan, Carter and Sloop, or somebody else, either one of the companies we're working with or another one. Really, nobody but Brennan has an advantage, because nobody really knows Billerica right now except him, and he's not big enough. He's a solo operator. So probably going to have to partner with another firm and use Brennan. We've got to make decisions about capacity and pipe size. We've got to repair or replace the pipe under 20 and under 78 and beside City Hall. And then we've got to have another engineer probably come in and review whatever our conceptual plan is. So that's what I'm thinking the approach is going to be. And I want to pause to say that from my 15-month vantage point now, this is the most important thing we're going to do while I'm here. And I've thought in my 15 months that other things would be in that place. You know, we've talked about the Mirror Lake Connector, and we talked about the bypass, and we talked about getting the trucks out of downtown and revitalizing downtown. But in terms of the longer growth plan for Billerica, the 61 corridor sewer is the primary issue. And so whether we grow like we can because of our location is going to be dependent on whether or not we can solve that problem. Now, one of the questions that comes up to me is, how can we consider doing other capital projects when we're raising water and sewer rates? And so I went back and looked at our capital plan, and there's, almost 10 things here that we've talked about doing. Gold Dust and Connors Road and Pine Mountain and the walking trail, all parks related, recreation related. Restoring Butterballs, restoring the old library, road resurfacing projects, the 2 new roads, renovating downtown, and then one day maybe moving the Avante building and building a new city hall. The reason that we can pursue some of those at the same time we're doing water and sewer increases is the funding sources are not related. And we have 2 good things going for us. We have double SPLOST money coming in from Carroll and Douglas, and we have a healthy general fund. So we can still do projects that are in addition to these water and sewer projects, but only as we have now the ability to deal with the other limitation, which is just staff time and our ability to manage projects. But those 9, 10, 11, 12, those dozen projects are all good projects. And we can work on some of them, but not all of them at the same time. But they're not related to what we're doing in water and sewer. Does that help? So the 2 wild cards in that are the T-SPLOST and the TAD. If we get the T-SPLOST, then that changes the way that we approach funding the road projects. So that's North Bypass, Mirror Lake Connector, potentially the walking trail. If we get the TAD, that helps us potentially with the Avamore project, Avamore project on 61, the Mirror Lake Connector also possibly, the North Bypass possibly. So November 6th is a big day for us, because if November 6th sees both of these pass, then we're in for a really busy 5 years. I mean, really, really busy.
It gets worse?
No, that's how long it's going to take. I mean, 5 years. If 5 years from now we get these 2 things passed in November, 5 years from now we could have all 9 current projects done in 2 years. We could have the 61 sewer project done in 5 years. We could be working on Mirror Lake Connector, if not have it done in 5 years, and we should be, you ready? In construction of the bypass if money stays at 2024, right? That 5 years from now would be fall of 23, and we would be looking at 6 months until the GDOT bid date on the North Bypass.
How's it coming on the north? Are we still doing right-of-way acquisition and
engineering?
When is that going to be completed?
April of 19 is the deadline. So that's the schedule they're still working as far as I've been told.
Yeah.
So,
on your list back here, I didn't see the pool road. Is that included in some way? What we talking about the need for the fire?
Right. We're I think the second water project is the Edge Road water line extension, and that's the one that's going to help us at Liberty Pool.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. That's the 5-year plan of complete madness if we...
had in T-Splosh approved.
Tom, I know you spend a lot of effort. I've been in your office every day and watched you work on this, and I appreciate it. It certainly gives us a roadmap where we need to be. There are some tough decisions we gotta make ahead, and growth's one of them. One thing that I would say is, you said if we decide to grow, and I think if the economy stays like it is, it's not a matter of if we decide to grow, it's just if we're gonna be a part of the growth, and we're gonna be ahead of it, so. No matter which way we grow. Right, because it's coming if the economy stays good. Okay, we do have an executive session item, correct? I would entertain a motion we adjourn into executive session. So moved. For the purposes of discussing real estate acquisition. For that purpose. I'll make that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? We are in executive session. Y'all stick around, you stayed this long.
Oh, I wouldn't ask you to stick around.